At family dinner, my son Michael said, "Your job is to watch my kids while I enjoy my life with my wife. It's that simple. If you have a problem with it, the door is right there." I responded, "Perfect. I'm leaving, and you two can start paying your own bills. It's that simple." Those words left my mouth before I could even think them, as cold as the ice floating in the water glasses on the table. Michael stopped chewing. Jessica dropped her fork. The sound of metal against porcelain echoed in the thick silence that filled the dining room. My 3 grandchildren looked up from their plates, confused, sensing that something had just broken but not understanding what. Only Claire, my 16-year-old granddaughter, was looking at me with those dark, all-seeing eyes, the ones she inherited from my mother, and in her gaze, there was something I didn't expect to find. Pride. I should have seen it coming. I should have noticed the signs during these 3 months. The glances Michael and Jessica exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking, the conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the living room, the suitcases always packed by the front door, as if this house were a hotel and I was the permanent staff. But a mother never wants to believe her own son is using her. A mother always finds excuses, always justifies, always forgives before she's even asked for forgiveness. I stood up slowly, with the dignity my own mother taught me when I was just a girl in the countryside. I didn't tremble. I didn't cry. I simply folded the cloth napkin I had on my lap, placed it next to my plate of untouched food, and walked to my room without looking back. I heard Michael's chair scrape against the hardwood floor. I heard his voice calling me, but it sounded distant, as if it were coming from the bottom of a well. "Mom, wait, it wasn't a big deal." But it was a big deal. It was a much bigger deal than he could possibly imagine. That Sunday night, that dinner I myself had spent 4 hours preparing, was the moment everything exploded. But the story began much earlier, 3 months ago, when Michael called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my little house upstate, the one I bought with your father's pension money after he died, watering the basil plants in the small garden I loved so much. The phone rang as the afternoon sun cast a golden glow on the cream-colored walls of my home, the one I painted with my own 2 hands, the one where every corner held a memory of the 30 years I lived alone, but never lonely. "Mom, I need you." Those were his words. "Mom, I need you." And I, as always, dropped everything. Michael explained that Jessica was exhausted, that the 3 children were too much for her alone, that his job as an executive kept him traveling constantly all over the country, sometimes for weeks at a time. He told me they just needed temporary help, just a few months, until things settled down, until they found a suitable nanny, until Jessica recovered from her burnout. His voice sounded so tired, so desperate on the phone, that I didn't hesitate for a second. I sold my house in less than a month. That little house with its porch where I drank coffee every morning watching the sunrise, with its wooden rocking chair that creaked softly when I rocked, with its windows that looked out onto the open fields where birds sang at dawn. I sold it for $45,000, less than it was worth, because I needed the money quickly to help my son. Michael told me I could stay with them as long as I needed, that there was a room for me, that we would be a united family again, just like when he was little. I arrived on a Friday afternoon with my 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. That was all that was left of my life. The rest I sold, gave away, or left behind. Michael and Jessica received me with hugs and smiles. The children ran to me shouting, "Grandma, Grandma." Claire, the oldest, greeted me with a kiss on the cheek and a look that, even then, struck me as sad. Owen and Caleb, the 8-year-old twins, jumped around me like excited puppies. Everything seemed perfect. They showed me my room. A small room at the end of the hall, the one they used to store Christmas decorations and boxes of things they no longer used. There was a twin bed, a narrow closet, and a window that looked out onto the back alley. The walls were white and bare. There was no space for my rocking chair. There was no space for my framed photos. There was no space for almost anything that was me. But Michael put his hand on my shoulder and said, "It's temporary, Mom, just until we get organized." And I smiled and said it was perfect, that it was all I needed. The first week was lovely. I cooked for everyone, prepared the children's school lunches, washed the clothes, ironed Michael's shirts. Jessica thanked me with hugs and told me, "I don't know what we'd do without you, Eleanor." Michael would come home from work to find the house clean, dinner ready, The children bathed and their homework done. I felt useful. I felt needed. I felt part of something important again. The second week, Michael and Jessica announced they had to travel for work. 3 days to the state capital for an important conference. I would stay with the children. Of course, I said. That's what I'm here for. They left on a Wednesday morning with their elegant suitcases. Jessica, in that salmon-colored dress that highlighted her slim figure. Michael in his gray suit that made him look successful and confident. They kissed me on the cheek and left me a list of instructions taped to the refrigerator. They returned on Sunday night, tanned and relaxed, smelling of expensive perfume and wine. They brought me a box of chocolates as a thank you. The third week, they traveled again. And the fourth, and so it became a routine. I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, before the sun came up. I'd prepare the coffee in that silver coffee maker that made a sighing sound when it finished. The smell of coffee filled the silent kitchen as I prepared 3 lunch boxes with sandwiches cut into perfect triangles, washed fruit, and homemade cookies. I would wake the children at 6:30. I'd dress them, comb their hair, tie their shoes. I'd walk them the 4 blocks to their school, Owen holding my right hand, Caleb my left, Claire walking ahead with her backpack slung over one shoulder, her earbuds in. I'd return to the empty house and clean. Every day, I cleaned that house that was never finished being clean. I mopped the hardwood floors, dusted the furniture, folded the laundry, tidied up the toys the twins left scattered everywhere. At noon, I would eat alone in the kitchen, standing by the sink, looking out the window at the neglected backyard. In the afternoons, I'd pick up the children from school, give them a snack, supervise their homework, and take them to the park if the weather was good. At night, I cooked dinners that Michael and Jessica rarely ate because they arrived late or not at all. The suitcases by the door became part of the landscape. There were always 2 suitcases ready, one black and one wine-colored, waiting for the next trip. Michael said it was for work, important meetings, clients to attend to, contracts to close. But I started to notice things. The hotel tags on the suitcases when they returned. Hotels with spas. Hotels on beaches. Hotels that didn't seem to be for business trips. One afternoon, I found Jessica's phone left on the living room table. It was unlocked. I didn't want to look. I really didn't. But the screen showed an Instagram notification. A new photo posted. I opened it without thinking. It was Jessica in an elegant restaurant, a glass of wine in her hand, smiling at the camera. The location tag said Cancun. The caption read, "A well-deserved rest." It had been posted 2 days ago when they were supposedly at a work conference in the capital. That's when something started to shift inside me. Something dark and cold, like well water. The photo of Jessica in Cancun glowed on the phone screen like a silent slap in the face. "A well-deserved rest," the caption read. I was sitting on the living room sofa, that unfamiliar phone in my trembling hands, while the children played on the floor at my feet, building towers with colorful blocks. Owen shouted that his tower was taller. Caleb said his was stronger. Claire was lying on the other sofa reading a book, but her eyes weren't moving across the pages. She was watching me over the edge of the book, quiet, waiting. I swiped my finger across the screen. There were more photos. Jessica on a white sand beach, wearing a coral-colored bathing suit and enormous sunglasses. Michael beside her on the same beach, tanned, relaxed, with a beer in his hand. The 2 of them in a restaurant overlooking the ocean. The 2 of them toasting with champagne glasses. The dates of the posts coincided exactly with their supposed work trips. Every single one of them. I closed the app. My hands weren't trembling anymore. Something strange was happening inside me. Something that wasn't anger or sadness, but a kind of cold clarity. Like when dirty water settles and you can suddenly see the bottom of the river. I left the phone exactly where I had found it and got up from the sofa. Claire was still watching me. Our eyes met for a long second. She closed her book slowly and said in a low voice, "Grandma, I have to show you something." We went up to her room while the twins continued to play downstairs. Claire's room was the only space in that house that seemed to have a soul. Band posters on the walls, clothes draped over the back of a chair, books piled on her desk. She locked the door and took out her phone. She sat on the bed and motioned for me to sit next to her. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I should have told you this weeks ago, but I didn't know how. Her voice sounded guilty, broken. She opened WhatsApp and showed me something that made my blood run cold. It was a group chat called the Mom Plan. The only members were Michael and Jessica. Claire had gotten into her mother's phone one night and had taken screenshots of everything. Now she showed them to me, one by one, slowly, giving me time to read each message. The group had messages from 4 months ago, before I had even sold my house. Michael. I talked to my mom. She's in. Jessica. Perfect. With her watching the kids, we save the $1,200 a month for a nanny. Michael. And she'll give us the money from her house sale. We can pay off the credit cards. Jessica. Great. We'll tell her we're saving it for her, but we'll use it for the debts. She doesn't know how to check bank accounts anyway. Michael. She's my mom. She won't ask questions. I kept reading. There were dozens of messages. Jessica complaining that I cooked with too much oil. Michael laughing about how I didn't know how to use the new TV remote. The two of them planning trips while I stayed with the kids. Jessica saying they should give me a smaller room because I didn't need that much space. Michael responding that the storage room was enough for someone my age. There was a recent message from 2 weeks ago. Jessica. Your mom is starting to ask questions about the money. Michael. I'll tell her it's invested. She doesn't understand that stuff. Jessica. We should have her sign a power of attorney. That way we have total control. Michael. Good idea. I'll tell her it's in case of an emergency. Claire took the phone from my sight. I had my hands clenched in my lap, my nails digging into my palms. There's more, she said, her voice trembling. They sold your furniture. The pieces you left in the garage. Mom posted them on Facebook Marketplace. They sold them for $800 and went out to a fancy restaurant. I know because I was there. They made me go. Dad made a toast and said, "Thanks, Mom, for your generosity." I stood up. I walked to the window in Claire's room. From there, I could see the quiet neighborhood street, the trees with their leaves moving gently in the wind, the identical houses with their perfectly manicured lawns. Everything looked so normal, so orderly. But I felt like my entire world had been turned inside out, like a dirty sock. For 3 months, I had believed I was helping my son. For 3 months, I had gotten up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I had ironed, cooked, cleaned, and cared. For 3 months, I had slept in that tiny room feeling useful, needed, important. And it had all been a lie from the beginning. Grandma, I'm so sorry. Claire's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She was standing next to me, tears rolling down her cheeks. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I was scared. I was scared you would leave and I'd be alone with them. Because you're the only one in this house who treats me like I matter. The only one who asks how my day was. The only one who sees me. I hugged her. I felt her thin body tremble against mine. She was just a child, barely 16, trapped in a family that used her as decoration. I realized then that I wasn't the only one being exploited in that house. Claire was invisible to her parents, too. Just another responsibility delegated to Grandma while they enjoyed their perfect Instagram life. I'm not leaving without you, I whispered in her ear. I promise you that. That afternoon, after picking up the twins from school and giving them their snack, I waited for them to start watching TV. I went up to my room and closed the door. I took out an old notebook from my suitcase, one I had kept for years to write down recipes and shopping lists. I tore out a clean page and began to write. I wrote down everything I remembered. The dates Michael asked me for the money, the times they traveled, the missing furniture, the promises they made, every detail, every conversation, every lie. Then I searched the bottom of my suitcase for a creased business card I had saved years ago. It was from a lawyer in the town where I used to live, an older man who helped me with the paperwork when your father died. His name was Arthur Vance. I didn't know if he was still working, if he still had the same number, but he was the only person I could think of who might help me. I went down to the kitchen and used the house landline to call. I dialed the number with trembling fingers. It rang 3 times. 4, 5. I was about to hang up when I heard his voice. Arthur Vance's office. My heart skipped a beat. "This is Eleanor Ramirez," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "I don't know if you remember me. You helped my husband with his will years ago. There was a pause. Then his voice, warmer. Of course I remember you, Mrs. Ramirez. How are you? Tell me how I can help you. I told him everything. I spoke in a low voice so the children wouldn't hear me from the living room. I told him about the money, the sold furniture, the lies, the messages Claire had shown me. He listened in silence. When I finished, there was another long silence. Then he said, Mrs. Ramirez, what you are describing is financial elder abuse. It's a crime. You have rights. You have options. He explained that I could get my money back, that I could prove Michael used it without my consent, that the WhatsApp messages were evidence, that selling my furniture without permission was theft. But he warned me that it would be a difficult, painful, and public process, that my son could face serious legal consequences. He asked me if I was sure I wanted to move forward. I looked around that kitchen that I cleaned every day, the clean dishes in the drying rack, the mopped floor shining under the light, the grocery list on the refrigerator in my handwriting, all evidence of my invisible work. My life turned into unpaid service. I thought about my sold house, my lost garden, my stolen mornings. I thought about Claire crying on my shoulder. I'm sure, I said. Tell me what I need to do. Arthur gave me precise instructions. I needed proof of everything. The WhatsApp messages Claire had shown me were a start. But we needed more. I needed bank documents showing that Michael had used my money. I needed evidence of the furniture sale. I needed to record conversations, if possible. But above all, he told me something that seared into my brain like a hot iron. Mrs. Ramirez, you cannot let them know that you know. You have to act normal. You have to keep being the helpful grandmother while you gather the evidence. If they suspect anything, they will hide everything, and you will lose your chance. Act normal. Those 2 words became my mantra for the following weeks. Act normal while inside I felt like I was falling apart. Act normal while preparing breakfast for the very people who had betrayed me. Act normal while ironing the shirts of a son who saw me as a free employee. That same night, Michael and Jessica arrived late again. They came into the house laughing about something, with bags from an expensive store hanging from their arms. Jessica was wearing a new lavender-colored dress that probably cost more than what I spent on food for the entire week. They found me in the kitchen, cleaning the dishes from the dinner they hadn't arrived in time to eat. Hi, Mom, Michael said, kissing my forehead as if nothing was wrong. The kids already asleep? I nodded. They're in bed. Claire is in her room. Jessica walked past me without a glance, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, leaving a trail of cloying perfume that turned my stomach. Michael opened the refrigerator and took out a beer. He leaned against the counter and looked at me with that expression I used to mistake for affection, but which I now recognized as condescension. Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. My heart sped up, but I kept my hands steady, washing a plate. Tell me, son. He took a long drink of his beer. It's about your finances. I've been thinking you should sign a power of attorney. It's a legal document that lets me manage your money in case you have a medical emergency or something. It's for your own security. There it was. Exactly what the WhatsApp messages had predicted. I put the plate in the drying rack and dried my hands on the dish towel, slowly, giving myself time to control my voice. A power of attorney, I repeated. Yeah, he said. It's a common thing. A lot of older folks do it. That way I can help you with all the bank paperwork and that complicated stuff. You know you're not great with technology. Mom, it's to make your life easier. I looked him in the eye. Those brown eyes that were identical to mine, that had once looked up at me with need when he was a baby crying in the early morning, when he was a child scared of thunderstorms, when he was a teenager with a broken heart from his first love. Now those same eyes looked at me with a barely concealed mix of impatience and manipulation. Let me think about it, I said in a soft voice. It's an important thing. I want to be sure I understand it completely. His expression changed for a fraction of a second. A flash of irritation crossed his face before he smiled again. Sure, Mom, take your time. But it's no big deal. Seriously, it's just a piece of paper. He finished his beer, left the empty bottle on the counter for me to throw away, and left the kitchen. I heard him go up the stairs. I heard his bedroom door close. I heard the sound of the TV turning on. I was left alone in the kitchen with my still damp hands. Michael's empty bottle gleamed under the fluorescent light. I picked it up and threw it in the recycling bin. And as I did, I realized something. I didn't feel pain anymore. I didn't feel that pinch in my chest that comes when someone you love disappoints you. What I felt was something different, something more dangerous. I felt determination. The next morning, after taking the children to school, I went back home and went up to the master bedroom. It was the first time I had entered it since I came to live with them. Michael and Jessica were out again. This time, for what they called a midday meeting with investors. I knew they were probably at a spa or an elegant restaurant, but I didn't care anymore. I had work to do. I opened Michael's closet. It was full of expensive suits, perfectly ironed shirts, shoes lined up like soldiers. On the top shelf, there were shoeboxes. I took them down one by one. Most of them contained exactly that, shoes. But the fifth box, that one held something different. Papers, bank statements. I took them out with trembling hands and brought them to the bed to review them in the light coming through the window. There it was. My savings account, in my name, but with Michael as a co-owner. The initial balance, $45,000. The withdrawals began 2 weeks after I arrived at this house. $3,000, $5,000, $2,500. Each withdrawal with a vague description: medical expenses, home repairs, family investment. But I had never had any medical expenses. The house hadn't had any repairs. There was no investment. The current balance on the account was $16,200. Michael had spent almost $30,000 of my money in 3 months. I took out my cell phone, the one Claire had been teaching me to use better in recent weeks. I took pictures of every page, every statement, every withdrawal, every lie documented on bank letterhead. My hands weren't trembling anymore. They were steady, like a surgeon's making a precise incision. I put everything back exactly as I had found it. I closed the closet. I went downstairs. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table to wait for them. When they returned 2 hours later, loaded down with more shopping bags, they found me peeling potatoes for dinner. "Hi, Mom," they said in unison. I greeted them with a smile. The smile I had perfected over 72 years of life. The one that hid everything I needed to hide. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, I went downstairs quietly to the living room. I sat on the sofa in the darkness and opened my phone. I sent Arthur all the photos I had taken. He replied in minutes, despite the hour. "This is more than enough. We are ready to proceed when you say. But remember, once we start, there is no turning back. Your son will face charges. There will be serious legal consequences." I looked around the dark living room, the twins' toys tidied in their basket, the family photos on the wall, all with perfect smiles and perfect lies. The suitcases by the door, always ready for the next escape. I thought about my lost house, my stolen money, my trampled dignity. I thought about Claire, upstairs in her room, probably awake too, probably wondering if I would really do something or if, in the end, I would just give up as everyone expected me to. I wrote my reply: "I'm ready. Tell me what's next." Arthur's response came quickly. "First, you need to find a place to go. You cannot stay in that house once they know what you are doing. Do you have family, friends, someone who can take you in temporarily?" That was the hard part. All my immediate family was gone. Your father, 10 years ago. My sister, 5, my parents, long before that. My friends were all back in the town where I used to live, 300 miles away. I couldn't just show up on their doorsteps without an explanation. But then I remembered someone. A distant cousin, Carol, who lived in this same city. We hadn't seen each in years, not since my sister's funeral, but she had always been kind to me. She always said, "Call me if you need anything." The next day, while the children were at school, I called her. Her voice sounded surprised but warm when she heard mine. "Eleanor, what a surprise! How are you?" I told her I was fine, that I was living nearby now, that I'd like to see her to catch up. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. I didn't tell her anything else over the phone. Some conversations need to be face to face. The coffee shop smelled of cinnamon and fresh brewed coffee. Carol arrived 10 minutes late, apologizing, her gray hair pulled back in a bun, her kind eyes crinkling at the corners. We sat by the window. We ordered coffee, and then I told her everything. Every detail, every betrayal, every lie. She listened in silence, her coffee growing cold in its cup, untouched. When I finished, she reached her hand across the table and took mine. Her eyes were moist. "Eleanor, you can stay with me for as long as you need. I have a guest room. It's not big, but it's yours. And if that girl Claire needs to come with you, she is welcome too. No one deserves to be treated like this, especially not you, who has given your whole life to your family." I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot that had been tied tight for months. I wasn't alone. I had a place to go. I had someone who believed me. "Thank you, Carol," I whispered. "You don't know what this means to me." She squeezed my hand tighter. "Women have to look out for each other," she said, "especially when sons forget how to care for the mothers who raised them." I left that coffee shop feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The next few days were the strangest of my life. I was living in two simultaneous realities. In one, I was the ever-helpful grandmother, waking up before dawn, preparing breakfasts, packing lunches, cleaning bathrooms, folding laundry. In the other, I was a silent strategist, gathering evidence piece by piece, building my escape like someone putting together a puzzle in secret. No one noticed anything. Michael and Jessica continued with their lives as if I were part of the furniture, useful but invisible. One afternoon, while I was cleaning Michael's study, I found more. A crumpled receipt in the wastebasket. It was from an expensive jewelry store downtown. $2,300 for a white gold bracelet. The date matched one of the withdrawals from my account perfectly. Jessica had been wearing that bracelet in her latest Instagram post, showing it off on her slender wrist as she held a wine glass. The caption read, "When your husband spoils you for no reason, he loves me so much." I took a photo of the receipt. I crumpled it back up exactly as it was and put it back in the wastebasket. I kept cleaning as if nothing had happened. But inside, something was burning. That night at dinner, Jessica wore the bracelet. The dining room light reflected off the gold, making it sparkle. She moved her wrist deliberately as she ate, making sure everyone saw it. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she said, looking at Michael with sparkling eyes. "My husband has such good taste." Michael smiled proudly. "Only the best for you, my love." Claire looked at me from across the table. Our eyes met for a second. She knew. She could see in my expression that I had discovered something else. She lowered her gaze to her plate and continued eating in silence, but I saw how her fingers tightened on her fork. The next day was Saturday. Michael announced at breakfast that he and Jessica were leaving on another trip, this time to Miami. 5 days, an important industry convention. "Mom, you'll handle everything here, right?" It wasn't a question. I nodded as I poured more orange juice. "Of course, son. You go and don't worry." They left on Sunday morning. I watched them load their suitcases into the car. Jessica, with enormous sunglasses and a mint green dress that fluttered in the breeze, Michael, with his perfectly pressed shirt. They kissed me on the cheeks. "Be good, kids," Jessica shouted from the window as they pulled away. The car disappeared around the corner. I stood in the doorway with the 3 children beside me, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. That afternoon, after the twins went down for their nap, I asked Claire to come to my room. I locked the door. We sat on the edge of my narrow bed. "Claire," I said in a low voice, "I need your help with something important." She nodded immediately. "Anything, Grandma." I explained my plan. I needed to access Michael's computer. I needed to check his emails, his files, any other evidence of how he had spent my money. Claire knew the password because she sometimes used it for school homework. But we had to be careful. We couldn't leave a trace. We couldn't change anything. Just look and document. She looked at me with those eyes that seemed too old for her age. "Grandma, they're stealing from you. Of course I'll help you. But there's something else you need to know." She lowered her voice even more. "Mom's not pregnant. That story they told last month about a high-risk pregnancy. It's a lie. I heard her talking on the phone with her sister. She said they made it up so you wouldn't ask questions about why they travel so much. The air caught in my throat. I remembered the day Michael sat me down in the living room and told me with a serious face that Jessica was pregnant, but that there were complications, that she needed rest, that the doctors had recommended short trips to reduce her stress. I had cried with happiness, thinking I would have another grandchild. I had cooked special meals. I had insisted that Jessica not lift a finger. It had all been theater. "Thank you for telling me," I whispered. Claire put her hand on mine. "Grandma, when you leave, I want to go with you. I can't live with them anymore. They use me for family photos, but they don't care about me. They never have. The only reason they haven't sent me to boarding school is because it would look bad on their social media." I hugged her tight. "You're coming with me," I promised. "I swear it on everything I am." That night, after putting the twins to bed, Claire and I sat in front of Michael's computer in his study. The light from the monitor glowed in the darkness. She typed in the password. The screen lit up, showing a desktop full of meticulously organized folders. We started looking. We found emails. Dozens of emails between Michael and a real estate agent. They were planning to sell this house. The conversation had started 2 months ago. The agent said they could easily get $500,000 for the property. Michael replied, asking about smaller houses in other neighborhoods, houses with only 3 bedrooms. No room for me. The plan was to sell me on the idea of a nursing home, to make me believe it was for my own good, and to keep my share of the money from the sale. There was a folder named Mom's Finances. We opened it. It contained detailed spreadsheets of every penny they had spent of my money. Trip to Cancun, $4,000. Restaurants, $2,100. Clothes and accessories, $6,800. New living room furniture, $3,500. Credit card payments, $11,200. Every expense was meticulously documented, as if it were something to be proud of. Claire took photos with her phone while I stared at the screen, feeling the world blur at the edges. This was my son, the baby I nursed, the child I cared for when he had pneumonia at 7 years old, staying awake for 3 nights straight, the teenager I helped with his math homework, the young man I lent money to for his first car, the man I sold my house for. We found a Word document titled Strategy. We opened it. It was a step-by-step plan of how to manipulate me. Step 1, convince her to sell her house and move in. Step 2, take control of her money under the pretext of helping her. Step 3, have her sign power of attorney. Step 4, use her as a free nanny while we pay off our debts. Step 5, when the money runs out, convince her a nursing home is the best option. Step 6, sell the house and move to something smaller, without her. It had been planned from the beginning. Every hug, every "we need you, Mom," every "thanks for everything you do." It had all been calculated. I wasn't his mother. I was a resource to be exploited. "That's enough," Claire said, her voice breaking. She was crying too. "Grandma, we have everything. Let's go. Please, let's go now." But I shook my head. Not yet. We need to wait for the right moment. If we leave now, while they're away, they'll call the police. They'll say I abandoned them with the children. We need to wait until they come back. Those 5 days were an eternity. I took care of the twins, as I always did. I took them to the park. I made them their favorite meals. I read them stories before bed. Owen and Caleb had no idea what was happening. They were innocent in all of this, and that was the part that hurt the most. I loved them. I loved their laughs, their spontaneous hugs, the way they called me Grandma in their high-pitched voices. But I couldn't save them without destroying myself. At night, when the house was asleep, I packed in silence. One suitcase with my clothes, another with my important documents. The photos of your father, my rosary, my mother's recipe book. The few things that truly mattered. I hid them in the back of my closet, ready to go at a moment's notice. Arthur called me every afternoon to review the plan. He had prepared all the legal documents. A temporary restraining order against Michael, so he couldn't touch what was left of my money. A civil lawsuit for misappropriation of funds. a criminal complaint for financial elder abuse. Everything was ready. We were just waiting for my signal. On Thursday night, Michael called me. His voice sounded relaxed, happy. "Hi, Mom. How are the kids?" I told him they were fine, that everything was quiet. "Perfect," he said. "We'll be back on Saturday afternoon. Oh, and Mom, when we get back, I need you to sign that power of attorney. I've already spoken to the notary. It's important we do it soon." "Of course, son," I replied in a sweet voice. "Whenever you want." I hung up the phone. I looked at the calendar on the wall. Saturday. In 2 days, my life would change forever. On Friday morning, I woke up with a strange clarity. It was as if all the fear, all the doubt, had evaporated during the night. I got up at 5, as always, but this time not out of obligation, but by choice. I made coffee in the silent kitchen and sat by the window, watching the sky change from black to gray to pink. It was my second to last morning in this house. By this time tomorrow, it would all be over. I called Carol early. "Tomorrow," I said simply. "We're leaving tomorrow." She didn't ask questions. She just said, "I'll be ready. I'll send you the address. Come whenever you can." Then I called Arthur. "Tomorrow afternoon," I informed him. "They get back at 4. I need the documents to be ready by 5. He replied in a firm voice. "They'll be ready. You just get yourself and the girl out of that house. I'll handle the rest." I spent that day in a strange state, as if I were watching my life from the outside. I took the twins to the park and watched them on the swings, their laughter filling the warm afternoon air. Caleb asked me to push him higher. Owen wanted me to watch him do tricks on the monkey bars. I watched them, engraving every moment in my memory, knowing it would likely be the last time I would care for them like this. It wasn't their fault. They were innocent. But I couldn't save them without sacrificing myself, and I had finally learned that saving myself wasn't selfish. It was survival. That night, I made a special dinner. Roast chicken with potatoes and carrots, the twins' favorite. I even made flan for dessert, the one Claire loved. The 4 of us ate at the kitchen table. The twins chattered non-stop about their day at school. Claire ate in silence, but every so often she would look at me, and I saw the unasked question in her eyes. "Is it really going to happen?" I would nod slightly. "Yes. Tomorrow, everything changes." After putting the children to bed, I went up to my room and checked everything one last time. The suitcases were packed, hidden in the back of the closet. The important documents were in my purse. The photos Claire took were on her phone. All the evidence was backed up to the cloud. Arthur had copies of everything. There was no turning back now. The plan was in motion like a stone rolling downhill, unstoppable. I lay down but didn't sleep. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house, the refrigerator humming, the water heater clicking, the small creaks of the wood settling. This house had never been mine. It had never belonged to me. I had only been a temporary piece, useful while I lasted, disposable when I wore out. Saturday dawned bright and clear. I got up, showered, and dressed with care. Comfortable pants, a simple ivory-colored blouse, shoes I could walk in for hours if needed. I pulled my hair back into a low bun. I looked at myself in the small mirror in my room. The woman looking back at me was not the same one who had arrived here 3 months ago. That woman had been naive, hopeful, desperate to feel needed. This woman was different. This woman had learned that sometimes love isn't enough, that sometimes people disappoint you in ways you never imagined, that sometimes the only way to survive is to walk away from those who say they love you but are destroying you. I made breakfast. I woke the twins. I fed them. I bathed them. I put them in clean clothes. I did everything exactly as I had done every morning for 3 months. But inside, I was counting the hours. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That was the time. Michael had said they would arrive at 4. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I started to move my things. I brought the suitcases downstairs while the twins were watching TV in the living room. I put them by the back door, hidden behind the curtains. Claire came down with her own backpack, small and discreet. Just the essentials, I had told her. We can get the rest later. She had packed clothes, her ID, her laptop, a few photos, nothing else. At 3:30, my phone rang. It was Carol. "I'm ready. Are you still on?" I replied, "Yes. We'll be out in half an hour." Then I texted Arthur, "Proceed. I will be out in 1 hour." The minutes dragged on. I sat in the living room with the twins, watching their cartoon show. Caleb cuddled up against my side. Owen put his head in my lap. I stroked their hair gently, memorizing the feel of their soft hair under my fingers, the small, trusting weight of their bodies. "You're going to be okay," I whispered, though they couldn't hear me over the sound of the TV. "Your parents will take care of you. You'll grow up, and maybe someday you'll understand." At 10 minutes past 4, I heard the car in the driveway. My heart sped up, but my hands stayed steady. Michael and Jessica came through the front door, tanned and relaxed. They were carrying their suitcases, bags of souvenirs, wide smiles. "Hi," they shouted. "We're home." The twins ran to them, screaming, "Dad! Mom!" Michael lifted them both up, one in each arm, laughing. Jessica saw me on the sofa. "Hi, Eleanor. Everything okay?" Her voice was casual, disinterested. I nodded. "Everything's fine." She passed by me toward the kitchen, dragging her suitcase. Michael put the children down and turned to me. "Mom, give me half an hour to shower, and then we'll sit down and sign those papers, okay? The notary can come by early tomorrow." "Yes, Son," I replied. "Take your time." They went upstairs. I heard their footsteps on the floor above. I heard the shower turn on. This was the moment. I got up from the sofa with all the calm in the world. Claire appeared in the living room doorway. We looked at each other. She nodded. I nodded. I went to the back door. I grabbed my suitcases. Claire grabbed her backpack. We walked out through the kitchen, into the backyard, then around the house to the street. My old car was parked on the street, the one Michael had suggested I sell because I didn't need it anymore. Good thing I never listened to him. I opened the trunk. We put the suitcases in. We got in the car. Before starting the engine, I took a white envelope from my purse. Inside was a handwritten letter. I had drafted it the night before, choosing each word with care. I read it one last time. "Michael, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I will not continue to be your unpaid employee. I will not be signing any power of attorney. I will not allow you to continue to steal from me. My lawyer will be in contact with you regarding the money you spent without my authorization. I hope those trips and that jewelry were worth it, because they are going to cost you much more than you paid. The children are with you, as they should be. They are your responsibility, not mine. Claire is coming with me because she chose to. She is 16 years old and has the right to choose. Do not try to find me. Do not try to contact me. We are done. Your mother, Eleanor." I got out of the car. I walked back to the front door. I slid the envelope under the door. I watched it disappear into the house. Then I walked back to the car, started the engine, and drove to the corner without looking back. Claire was silent in the passenger seat. I took her hand. She squeezed mine hard. "It's okay to be scared," I said. "I'm scared too, but we're going to be okay. Together, we're going to be okay." I drove, following the GPS directions to Carol's house, 20 minutes across town. 20 minutes that felt like hours. Every red light seemed like an eternity. I kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see Michael's car following us, but the street behind us remained empty. We arrived at a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Peach-colored walls, a garden with flowers, a large tree out front. Carol came out before we could even knock. She hugged both of us without a word. Then she ushered us inside, closed the door, and said, "You're safe here. Welcome home." The guest room was simple but cozy. A double bed, a small desk, cream-colored curtains, a window overlooking a backyard full of plants. Claire and I set down our bags. We sat on the bed. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then my phone started ringing. Michael's name glowed on the screen. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Immediately, it started ringing again, and again, and again. 10 calls in 5 minutes. Claire watched me with wide eyes. "You're not going to answer." It wasn't a question. I shook my head. "No, there's nothing left to say." The messages started to arrive. I read them on the lock screen without opening the conversations. Mom, what does this mean? Mom, pick up the phone. Mom, you can't just leave like this. Mom, this is ridiculous. Mom, come back right now. Mom, I'm going to call the police. Mom, you will regret this. Each message was more desperate than the last, but I didn't answer a single one. At 5:30, Carol's doorbell rang. She went to open it. I heard her talking to someone at the door. Then she came back to the room. It's a process server. He has documents for you. I went out to the living room. A man in a uniform handed me a large envelope. I need you to sign here, ma'am. I signed. He left. I opened the envelope. They were the documents from Arthur. The temporary restraining order, the civil lawsuit, the criminal complaint, all officially filed with the courts. Michael would be receiving his copy at any moment. My phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. I answered. It was Arthur. Mrs. Ramirez, the documents have been filed. Michael has been served. As of this moment, he cannot access your bank account. What's left of your money is protected. We have also filed the lawsuit to recover what he spent without authorization, and the criminal complaint is in the hands of the district attorney. He is going to try to contact you. Do not respond. Any communication must go through me. Thank you, Arthur, I said in a steady voice. You don't know what this means to me. He replied, Ma'am, I have seen many cases like yours. Children who exploit their elderly parents. But I rarely see someone with the courage to do what you are doing. It's going to be difficult. He is going to fight. But the law is on your side. The evidence is irrefutable. That night, Carol made us dinner. Vegetable soup, homemade bread, chamomile tea. We ate in her small, cozy kitchen with floral placemats and cloth napkins. It was all so simple, so peaceful. There was no tension in the air, no walking on eggshells, no suitcases waiting by the door. For the first time in 3 months, I took a deep breath and felt my lungs fill completely. After dinner, Claire and I sat in the guest room. She took out her phone and showed it to me. Grandma, Dad is sending me messages. Dozens of messages. I read a few. Claire, this is your grandmother's fault. She's abandoning us. Claire, tell her to come back or she'll destroy this family. Claire, she's manipulating you. Claire, if you don't come back, you're going to regret it. Every message was a mix of manipulation and barely disguised threats. What do you want to do? I asked her. Do you want to go back? She looked at me as if I had asked her if she wanted to cut off an arm. No, Grandma, never. I'd rather sleep on the floor than go back to that house. They never saw me. They only saw you when they needed something. And they only saw me when they needed the perfect family photo for Instagram. We're not people to them. We're accessories. That night, lying in the same bed in the darkness, Claire told me things she had never shared. She told me how her parents made fun of her when she wasn't thin enough for their standards. How Jessica would buy her clothes 2 sizes too small as motivation to lose weight. How Michael told her she needed to try harder in school, be more popular, get better grades, represent the family better. How they both checked her social media and demanded she delete posts that didn't project the right image. How she felt invisible until I arrived, until someone finally asked her how her day was and actually listened to the answer. She cried in my arms that night, and I cried too. For her, for me, for the years we had both lost, trying to please people who would never be satisfied. Sunday dawned with rain, soft drops tapping against the window, the sky gray and heavy. My phone continued to receive calls and messages. Michael, Jessica, unknown numbers that were probably them calling from other phones. I didn't answer any, but I did read them. I needed to know what they were planning. Jessica wrote to me, Eleanor, I don't know what's wrong with you, but this is incredibly selfish. You left us with 3 children and no help. How are we supposed to work now? And on top of that, you took Claire. She has to go to school. This is kidnapping. You're going to be in legal trouble. I took a screenshot of that message and sent it to Arthur. He replied, Perfect. This proves they saw you as an unpaid employee. And Claire is 16 and has rights. It's not kidnapping. Save everything they send you. In the afternoon, Michael changed his strategy. His messages became pleading. Mom, please. Let's just talk. I know I made mistakes. We can fix this. The kids miss you. Owen is asking for you. Caleb is crying at night. Don't do this to them. They love you. I love you. You're my mother. You can't just abandon me like this. I read those messages and felt something twist in my stomach. Because part of me, the part that had been a mother for 42 years, wanted to believe him. Wanted to think that maybe he was sorry, that maybe we could fix this. But then I remembered the messages from the Mom Plan group. I remembered the spreadsheet with every cent of my money spent on luxuries. I remembered the document titled Strategy. I remembered the $2,300 bracelet shining on Jessica's wrist. No, I said to myself, out loud. I'm not falling for it again. Claire looked up from the desk where she was doing homework. Grandma, are you okay? I nodded. I'm fine. Just reminding myself who I am. On Monday, Claire and I went to her school to arrange the change of address. The secretary looked at us with suspicion. We need authorization from both parents for any information changes, she said in a dry tone. Claire took out her ID. I'm 16. In this state, I have the right to choose who I live with if there's just cause. My grandmother is my temporary legal guardian now. Here are the documents. We handed her the papers Arthur had prepared. The secretary reviewed them, frowned, made a phone call, spoke to someone in a low voice. Finally, she sighed. All right. The change is made. But if the parents come here to complain, we'll have to call the authorities. Claire replied with a steady voice. Call them. I have nothing to hide. We walked out of the school holding hands. I felt something swell in my chest. Pride. This 16-year-old girl had more of a backbone than many adults I knew. That afternoon, while Carol was at work and Claire was at school, I sat in the small backyard of the house. There was a wooden bench under a tree. I sat there with a cup of tea, listening to the birds, watching the clouds move slowly across the sky. My phone was inside. I hadn't brought it. For the first time, I was completely alone with my thoughts, without interruptions. I thought about my life. 72 years. I had been a wife for 35 years, until your father died. I had been a mother since I was 30. I had worked cleaning houses to pay the bills when Michael was little and your father didn't earn enough. I had cooked thousands of meals, washed thousands of loads of laundry, cleaned countless floors, sacrificed my own dreams time and time again for my family. And in the end, my own son had seen me as a disposable tool, but I was still here, breathing, alive, free. And that had to mean something. A mint plant was growing in a pot next to the bench. I touched it gently. The leaves released their fresh, strong scent. Mint, like the kind that grew in my lost garden. Carol must have planted it. Or maybe it had always been there, waiting for me. I picked a small leaf and rubbed it between my fingers. The smell filled me, anchored me to the present moment. I was going to be okay. I didn't know how, exactly. I didn't know how long it would take, but I was going to be okay. When Claire got home from school, she found me in the garden. She sat next to me on the bench. Grandma, Dad came to the school today. He saw me on my way out. He tried to talk to me. My heart sped up. What did he say? She shrugged. That I'm making a mistake. That you brainwashed me. That I'll regret it. The usual stuff. I told him to leave me alone or I'd call security. He left. I'm sorry, Claire. I don't want you to go through this. She took my hand. Grandma, I've been through worse living with them. This, what we're doing now, this is liberation. The first week at Carol's house passed in a strange kind of fog. Every morning, I woke up expecting to hear the twins' voices, expecting to have to run to make breakfasts and pack lunches. But instead, there was silence. A soft, gentle silence that took me days to get used to appreciate. Carol left for work early. Claire left for school. And I was left alone in that small house that smelled of lavender and toast. At first, I didn't know what to do with myself. I cleaned things that were already clean. I cooked portions that were far too large, as if I were still feeding 5 people. I would find myself jumping to my feet every time I heard a noise, ready to attend to someone who wasn't there. 72 years of being conditioned to serve don't disappear in a week. But slowly, I began to remember who I was, before I became my son's invisible shadow. One afternoon, I found Carol's painting supplies in a closet. "Use them whenever you want," she told me. "I haven't touched them in years." I took out the watercolors, the brushes, the thick paper. I sat in the garden and painted the first thing that came to my mind. A small house with cream-colored walls. A garden with basil plants. A rocking chair on the porch. My lost house taking shape in soft colors on white paper. I cried while I painted. But it wasn't the desperate crying of the first few days. It was something different. A necessary mourning. A goodbye to what had been. When I finished, I hung the painting on the wall of my room. A reminder that lost things don't disappear completely if you keep them in your heart. The messages from Michael continued. Every day, a new strategy. First, it was please. Then threats. Then attempts to make me feel guilty. "Mom, Owen got sick and asked for you. Mom, Caleb is getting bad grades because he's depressed. Mom, Jessica had to quit her job because of you. Mom, we're going to lose the house if you don't help me." Every message was designed to make me give in, go back, and submit again. But Arthur had warned me about this. "It's called the cycle of abuse," he explained over the phone. "First come the apologies and promises, then the threats, then the guilt. Then they start all over. It's predictable. Don't fall for it." I saved every message without replying. They were evidence, proof of the pattern of manipulation that had lasted my entire life without me recognizing it. One afternoon, 2 weeks after I left, Jessica showed up at the door of Carol's house. I don't know how she got the address. Maybe she followed Claire. Maybe she hired someone to track us. Carol called me at work. "Eleanor, that woman is on my doorstep. She says she's not leaving until she talks to you." "What do I do?" "Don't open the door," I said. "I'm on my way." I drove back, my heart pounding. When I arrived, Jessica was sitting on the front steps. She looked different without the perfect makeup and designer clothes. She was wearing gray sweatpants and a sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She stood up when she saw me. "Eleanor, we need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about," I responded, keeping my distance. "My lawyer told you. All communication must go through him." She took a step toward me. "Please, just hear me out. 5 minutes. Michael doesn't know I'm here. I came alone." I looked at her eyes. There was something different in them. Something that looked like genuine fear. Against my better judgment, I said, 5 minutes. Out here. You're not coming in the house." We sat on the front steps, separated by a few feet. Jessica was rubbing her hands nervously. "Eleanor, I know we made mistakes. I know we used you. But you don't understand the whole situation. Michael has debts. A lot of debts. More than $200,000 in credit cards and loans. We were desperate. When you said you were selling your house, it seemed like a godsend. We didn't mean any harm. We were just trying to survive. So my survival mattered less than yours," I said in a flat voice. "My money, my work, my life, all of that was disposable so that you two could keep living beyond your means." "It's not like that," she protested. "We were going to pay you back. Eventually, when Michael's situation got better, when he got the promotion he was promised, you were going to get your money back, with interest. Eventually." "Eventually," I repeated. "When exactly? After you had spent every last cent? After you had me sign the power of attorney? After you put me in a cheap nursing home?" "I saw the messages, Jessica. I saw the whole plan. Don't treat me like I'm stupid." She fell silent. A tear rolled down her cheek. "Eleanor, they're going to put Michael in jail. The prosecutor's lawyer says he could face up to 5 years for fraud and financial elder abuse. 5 years. Our children are going to grow up without a father." She looked at me with pleading eyes. "Please, drop the charges. We'll give you back what's left of the money. We'll sign anything. But don't destroy your own son." I felt something tighten in my chest, because that part of me that was a mother still existed, that part that remembered Michael as a little boy, innocent, full of dreams. But then I remembered something else. I remembered his messages in the Mom Plan group. I remembered how he laughed when they planned to give me the smallest room. I remembered the spreadsheet where my $30,000 turned into vacations and jewelry. I remembered his voice at the family dinner, saying, "Your job is to watch my kids while I enjoy my life." "I'm not destroying my son," I said slowly. "He destroyed himself with his decisions. I am just protecting myself. Something I should have done a long time ago." Jessica stood up abruptly. "You're selfish. A bitter old woman who can't stand to see her own son happy. Michael gave you a roof over your head. He gave you a family, and this is how you repay him. I hope you can live with yourself, knowing you destroyed your own family." I stood up too. I kept my voice calm, though I was shaking inside. "Jessica, my son stole $30,000 from me. He lied to me. He exploited me. He treated me like an unpaid employee. He planned to put me in a nursing home when I was no longer useful. And you were right there every step of the way, supporting him, spending my money on gold bracelets. Don't you dare talk to me about family. You two destroyed that long before I left." She opened her mouth to reply, but no words came out. She turned and walked to her car. Before getting in, she shouted, "This isn't over. We're going to fight this. We're going to get Claire back. And you are going to regret this." I watched her drive away. My legs were trembling. I went into the house and sank onto the sofa. Carol came out of the kitchen, where she had been listening to the whole thing. She hugged me without saying anything, and I let myself cry. For everything I had lost. For everything I would never have again. For the family I thought I had, but which had never really existed. That night, Arthur called me. "Mrs. Ramirez, I have news. Michael is trying to make a deal. He's offering to return $24,000. Everything that's supposedly left after paying some critical debts. In exchange, you drop the criminal charges. You can still pursue the civil suit if you want, but he would avoid jail time." I thought about the offer. 24,000 of my original 45,000. Better than nothing. And Michael would avoid prison. The twins wouldn't grow up visiting their father behind bars. But something in me resisted. "What about the power of attorney he tried to make me sign?" I asked. "What about the furniture they sold? What about all the months I worked for free as a nanny?" Arthur sighed. "Legally, unpaid family caregiving is difficult to quantify in court. The furniture, we can include that in the civil suit. The power of attorney was never signed, so it doesn't constitute a crime, only intent. If you accept the deal, you get most of your money back and you close this chapter. If you move forward with everything, you might win more eventually, but it will be a long, painful, and public process. Your son will go to prison. The decision is yours." "I need to think about it," I said. "Give me a few days." That decision haunted me all week. Claire told me, "Grandma, don't give them anything. Make them pay for everything they did." Carol told me, "Eleanor, only you know what's right for you." I was torn between justice and mercy. Between the son who had been and the man he had become. The answer came in an unexpected way. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after I had left. I was in Carol's garden, watering the mint plants that I had begun to care for as a daily ritual. My phone rang, an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe my finger across the screen. "Hello?" I said, cautiously. "Grandma?" It was Caleb's voice, one of the twins. His little voice shot through the phone like an arrow straight to my heart. "Grandma, I miss you so much. When are you coming back? Dad says you left because you don't love us." My breath caught. I heard a scuffle in the background, then Michael's voice. "Caleb, give me the phone. Now." "No," Caleb shouted. "I want to talk to Grandma." There was a struggle. The phone dropped. I heard Caleb crying. Then Michael's voice, clear and cold. "Do you see what you're causing, Mom? Your grandchildren are suffering because of your selfishness." The call cut off. I stood there with the phone in my hand, shaking. Carol came out into the garden and found me with tears rolling down my cheeks. "What happened?" she asked, alarmed. I told her. She pressed her lips together, furious. "That is pure manipulation. He's using that child as a weapon. This has to stop, Eleanor." I called Arthur immediately. I told him about the call, He listened in silence. Then he said, "This is harassment, using a minor. I can file for a broader restraining order that includes indirect contact. But Mrs. Ramirez, I need you to make a decision about the deal." Michael is pushing because he knows the prosecutor has a solid case. If you reject the deal, we go to trial. He faces serious criminal charges. I need to know what you want to do. I sat on the garden bench. The afternoon sun warmed my face. I closed my eyes and thought about everything. The $30,000 stolen, the months of unpaid labor, the manipulation, the lies. But I also thought about Caleb crying, about Owen, probably just as confused, about how their lives would change if their father went to prison. And then I realized something. This had never been about revenge. It had been about dignity, about setting boundaries, about saying no more. And I had already achieved that. I had already left. I had already reclaimed my freedom. I had already saved Claire. Sending Michael to prison wouldn't give me back my lost years. It wouldn't heal the wounds. It would only add more pain to an already painful situation. I'll accept the deal, I told Arthur, but with conditions. I want the $24,000 in 1 week. I want Michael and Jessica to sign a document acknowledging what they did. I want them to agree to never contact me again, directly or indirectly, and I want them to leave Claire alone. If they try to force her to come back, the deal is off and we go to trial. It took Arthur a moment to respond. That's fair. I'll draft the terms. But Mrs. Ramirez, are you sure? You have every right to demand full justice. I'm sure, I replied. I don't want my grandchildren to grow up hating me because I put their father in prison. I've already lost enough. I'm not going to lose my peace of mind too, looking for a revenge that wouldn't make me feel any better. The agreement was signed the following Friday. Arthur had me come to his office. I arrived with Carol by my side for moral support. Michael and Jessica were already there with their own lawyer, a man in a dark suit with a grim face. Michael wouldn't look me in the eye. Jessica stared at the floor. Arthur read the terms aloud. Michael and Jessica Ramirez acknowledge having improperly used $24,000 belonging to Mrs. Eleanor Ramirez. They agree to return said amount in full within 7 days. They acknowledge having sold personal property of Mrs. Ramirez without authorization for a value of $800, which will also be reimbursed. They agree not to contact Mrs. Ramirez or her granddaughter, Claire Sanchez, by any means, direct or indirect, unless through legal representation. Mrs. Ramirez agrees to withdraw the criminal charges but maintains the right to proceed with a civil suit if any of these terms are violated. We all signed. The pens scratched against the paper in the tense silence of the office. When we finished, Arthur gathered the documents. Michael's lawyer passed him a check. Arthur reviewed it. He nodded. $24,800. It's all in order. Michael stood up to leave. At the door, he stopped. He turned to me for the first time. "Mom," he said in a low voice, "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know at what point everything got out of control. I love you. I've always loved you." I looked him in the eye, those eyes that were just like mine. "Michael," I replied in a calm voice, "I wish that had been enough. But love without respect isn't love. It's just a word you use when you need something. I hope someday you understand that. For your children's sake." He opened his mouth as if to say something else, but nothing came out. He left the office with Jessica trailing behind him. I watched them walk away through the window. I felt something close inside me. A chapter ending. A door closing softly but definitively. That night, Claire, Carol, and I celebrated in the small kitchen. Nothing extravagant. Just homemade pasta, a salad, and a bottle of cheap wine that Carol pulled from her pantry. We toasted to new beginnings. To women who save each other. To the courage to say enough. With the recovered money, I started to plan. I couldn't stay with Carol forever. She insisted there was no hurry, that we were welcome for as long as we needed. But I needed my own space again. I needed to rebuild myself in a place that was mine. I found a small apartment 2 miles from Carol's house. An old but well-maintained building with 2-bedroom apartments for seniors. The rent was $600 a month, utilities included. It had a small kitchen with an east-facing window, perfect for the morning sunday. It had a narrow balcony where I could put flower pots. And most importantly, it had 2 bedrooms. One for me, one for Claire. I showed her the place. She walked through the empty rooms, her footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. "Grandma, it's perfect," she said with a smile. "We can make it our own." We signed the lease the following week. We moved in with the little we had. Carol helped us, bringing boxes of things she no longer used. Dishes, pots, sheets, towels. "We'll share what I have," she insisted. "What's family for, if not for this?" The first day in our apartment was strange, quiet, empty, but also full of possibility. Claire and I assembled the second-hand furniture we bought. A small table for the kitchen, a slightly worn but comfortable olive green sofa, 2 beds, a bookshelf for Claire's books. Little by little, the empty space filled up with life. I planted mint on the balcony, 3 small pots of the plant that had become my symbol of resilience. Mint that grows anywhere, that survives even when it's cut back, that always comes back stronger. Like me. One afternoon, sitting on the balcony watching the sunset, Claire asked me, "Grandma, do you think you'll ever forgive Dad?" I thought about the question. The sky was turning orange and pink, the clouds moving slowly. "I think forgiveness is complicated," I replied. "It doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting it happen again. It means letting go of the poison so it doesn't make you sick inside. Someday, maybe I can forgive him, but I will never forget, and I will never let him hurt me again." She nodded. She put her head on my shoulder. "I admire you so much, Grandma. You're the strongest person I know." I laughed softly. "I don't feel strong, Claire. Most days I just feel like I'm surviving. But surviving is its own victory, I think." The weeks passed. The apartment felt more like home. I got a part-time job at a neighborhood flower shop. Nothing fancy, just helping arrange bouquets and attending to customers 3 days a week. They paid me $11 an hour. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Money I earned with my own effort that no one could take from me. Claire thrived in her new life. Her grades improved. She made new friends. She started to smile more. One night, she came home excited. "Grandma, I got into the art club at school. We're going to have an exhibition next month. Do you want to come?" "Of course," I answered, hugging her. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The messages from Michael eventually stopped. The last I heard from him was a short text message 3 months after the agreement. "Mom, just wanted you to know the kids are okay. Owen got good grades. Caleb made the soccer team. Thought you'd like to know." I didn't reply, but I saved the message. 6 months after I had left, my life had found a rhythm I never thought possible. I woke up when my body was ready, not when an alarm demanded I serve others. I drank my coffee on the balcony, watching the sun rise over the neighborhood buildings. The mint plants had grown lush, their green, vibrant leaves moving gently in the morning breeze. Sometimes I would pick a leaf and rub it between my fingers, letting the scent remind me of where I had come from and how far I had gone. The flower shop became more than a job. The owner, a woman named Megan, in her 50s, taught me the secret language of flowers. "Roses don't just mean love," she would tell me as we assembled a bouquet. "Chrysanthemums speak of truth. Daisies of innocence. Lilies of renewal." I listened and learned, and for the first time in decades, I felt like I was growing as a person instead of just existing for others. Claire blossomed in ways that filled my heart. Her art exhibition was a success. She presented a series of paintings about invisible women, women who worked in the background while others shone in the spotlight. One of the paintings was of me, though I didn't recognize it at first. An older woman standing in a kitchen, her figure almost transparent, while life went on around her, unseen. When I asked her why she had painted me like that, she said, "Because for a long time, you were invisible to everyone except me. But you're not anymore, Grandma. Now, everyone sees you." One Saturday afternoon, 3 months after we moved, I received an unexpected call. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something inside me knew I should answer. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Grandma Eleanor?" It was Owen's voice, the other twin. More mature than the last time I heard it, but unmistakable. "Grandma, it's me, Owen. Please don't hang up. My heart sped up. Hello, Owen, I replied softly. How are you? There was a silence. Then, I miss you. Caleb misses you too. Dad and Mom don't let us talk about you. They say you abandoned us. But I found your number in Dad's old phone. I wanted to hear your voice. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. I miss you both so much, I whispered, every single day. How are you? We're okay. He told me about school, about Caleb's soccer, about his new teacher. He spoke quickly, as if afraid someone would discover him. Then he said something that broke me. Grandma, Dad says you hated us. That's why you left. But I don't believe him. You never looked at us like we were a burden. Not like they do. Owen, listen closely to what I'm about to tell you, I said, my voice firm but loving. I love you. You and Caleb, and even Claire, who is with me. I love you more than words can say. I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because your dad was hurting me in ways you can't understand yet. Sometimes the people we love hurt us. And walking away isn't abandonment. It's protection. I heard his shaky breath. I understand, he said finally. Or maybe I don't understand all of it. But I know you're not bad. I know Mom and Dad lie about a lot of things. I see it. Grandma, when I'm older, can I come visit you? Of course you can, I replied. When you're older and can make your own decisions, my door will always be open for you. The call lasted only 10 minutes. When he hung up, I sat on the sofa, holding the phone to my chest. Claire came out of her room. She saw me crying and sat next to me. It was the twins, I said. Owen called. She hugged me without saying a word. Sometimes, silence is the best comfort. Autumn arrived, painting the trees in warm colors. The leaves fell like whispered confessions, covering the streets in shades of amber and cinnamon. I turned 73 in October. Carol and Claire threw me a small party in our apartment. Chocolate cake, candles, an off-key song of happy birthday. Simple but meaningful gifts. Carol gave me a hand-knit mustard-colored sweater. Claire gave me a journal with a note on the first page. So you can write your story, Grandma. The real one, the one no one can take from you. That night, alone in my room, I opened the journal. The blank page intimidated me. What story did I have to tell? But then I picked up the pen and began to write. Not from the beginning, but from the end. I wrote, "Today I turned 73, and for the first time in decades I am free." Then I kept writing backward, unraveling the threads of my life, finding patterns I hadn't seen before. Sacrifice, silence, submission, but also resilience, resistance, rebirth. One November afternoon, while I was working at the flower shop, a young woman came in with a baby in her arms. She needed an arrangement for her grandmother's funeral. As we talked, tears streamed down her face. She raised me, she told me. My parents were too busy with their careers. My grandmother was the one who took care of me, who listened to me, who saw me, and I never thanked her enough. Now she's gone, and I can't tell her how much she meant to me. I made her the most beautiful arrangement I could. White lilies for renewal, pink roses for gratitude, mint for eternal memory. When I handed it to her, I said, "She knew. Grandmothers always know. Love doesn't need constant words. It's felt in the small moments, in the glances, in the presence." She knew. The woman hugged me, crying. "Thank you," she whispered. I needed to hear that. When she left, I stood there thinking, maybe someday, many years from now, Owen or Caleb would remember the breakfasts I made them, the stories I read to them, the hugs I gave them. Maybe they would remember that someone had loved them unconditionally, even if she couldn't stay. And maybe that would be enough. December brought cold and Christmas lights. Claire and I decorated our apartment modestly. A wreath on the door, white lights around the window, a small second-hand tree we decorated with handmade ornaments. We didn't have much, but we had enough. We had peace. We had dignity. We had each other. On Christmas Eve, Carol invited us to dinner. We cooked together, the three women in her small kitchen, laughing as we peeled potatoes and seasoned the turkey. The house smelled of cinnamon and rosemary. The table was set with her good china. And when we sat down to eat, Carol raised her glass of cheap wine and made a toast. To the women who rise up. To the ones who leave when they need to leave. To the ones who build families with those who value them, not just those who share their blood. We clinked our glasses. The sound echoed like small bells. And in that moment, surrounded by these two women who had saved me as much as I had saved them, I realized something. I had lost so much. My house, my money, my relationship with my son, my grandchildren. But I had gained something far more valuable. I had gained myself back. That night, back in our apartment, I sat on the balcony despite the cold. The mint plants were dormant for the winter, but their roots were still alive under the soil, waiting for spring to grow again. Like me, I had been through the darkest winter of my life. But spring would come. It always does. Claire came out onto the balcony with a blanket. She wrapped it around my shoulders and sat next to me. "Grandma, what are you thinking about?" I smiled. "I'm thinking that I didn't need to shout to be heard. I just needed to leave to be understood. I'm thinking that I spent 72 years learning to be small, invisible, and helpful. And now, I'm learning to be me, whole, visible, valuable." She took my hand. "You did it, Grandma. You got out. You survived. You won." I shook my head gently. "It wasn't about winning, Claire. It was about choosing me. Finally, after a lifetime, I chose myself. And that, my child, was the greatest victory of all." The night sky was full of stars. The city glowed softly around us. Somewhere in that city was Michael with his children, probably telling them the story where I was the villain. But I wasn't carrying that narrative anymore. I had written my own. And in my story, I wasn't the villain or the victim. I was the hero who saved herself. Claire rested her head on my shoulder. We stayed like that, in silence, watching the city lights twinkle like small promises. The future stretched out before us, uncertain but full of possibility. And for the first time in a long time, that future didn't scare me. Because I had learned the most important lesson: that you can love someone and still walk away, that you can forgive without forgetting, that you can start over at any age. The mint on the balcony was waiting for spring. I was, too. But I was no longer waiting to serve others. I was waiting to bloom for myself. And when that spring came, when the plants grew back and the world filled with green again, I would be here, free, whole, and finally at home in my own life. I never went back to that house where I was invisible. I never again answered when they called to ask for something. I closed that door, gently but firmly. And on the other side, I built something new, something of my own, something that no one could ever take away from me again. They never again touched my name without my permission, and I never again made myself small to fit into the spaces others designed for me. This was my life now, and it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. I drove 800 miles to get to my daughter Clara's wedding. I knocked on her door at 6 o'clock in the morning, my suitcases in hand and my heart full of emotion. When she opened the door, her first reaction wasn't an embrace. She looked at me as if I were a stranger and said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know you were coming." In that moment, something inside of me broke. 71 years lived, 800 miles driven, and my own daughter was acting as if my presence were an inconvenience. But that was nothing compared to what came next. My son-in-law, Julian, appeared behind her with that phony smile that had always given me a bad feeling, and he let slip the words that would change everything forever. "She thinks $63,000 guarantees your presence here." My blood ran cold, not because of the amount I had given for her wedding, but because of the coldness with which he said it, as if I were an investor, not a mother. "My name is Eleanor. I am 71 years old, and for decades I believed that being a good mother meant giving everything without expecting anything in return. Clara is my only child. I raised her alone after her father abandoned us when she was just 8 years old. I worked double shifts. I sacrificed. I sold my car. I mortgaged my house, all so she could have the best. I paid for her college education, her first apartment, her new car. When she met Julian 3 years ago, I thought she had finally found happiness. How wrong I was. Julian turned out to be a manipulator who slowly pushed Clara away from me. At first, it was subtle comments. "Your mom is very nosy. Don't you think it's time for you to be independent? She treats you like you're a little girl. I watched as my daughter changed, as she grew colder toward me. But I thought it was part of growing up, of starting her own family. When they asked me for money for the wedding, I didn't hesitate for a second. $63,000 was practically all of my retirement savings, but it was for my daughter's happiness. Mom, we want a perfect wedding, Clara told me with tears in her eyes. You've always been so generous with us. I promise we'll pay you back. A lie. It was all a lie. The day I transferred the money, Julian told me. Eleanor, since you're paying for the wedding, you'll obviously be in the front row. I thought it was a joke in poor taste. How could I not be at my own daughter's wedding? But when I arrived that morning, after driving all night, I realized that to them, I was just a walking bank account. I didn't know you were coming, Clara repeated, without even inviting me inside. She was wearing a pink silk robe, getting ready for the most important day of her life, and I was an obstacle. Julian stepped closer and added, Eleanor, the ceremony is very intimate. Just close family. Close family. As if I weren't her mother. As if I hadn't been the one who comforted her during nightmares, who cared for her when she was sick, who worked until I bled to give her everything she needed. But I am your mother, I said to Clara, feeling my voice break. I am your closest family. She looked away, clearly uncomfortable. Mom, it's just that we already have everything organized. The seating at the church, the reception, it's all calculated. Calculated. Such a cold word to describe her wedding day. Julian took control of the conversation, as he always did. Look, Eleanor, we really appreciate your contribution, but Clara and I decided we want a small ceremony for just our nearest and dearest. Nearest and dearest. I, who had given everything for that girl, was not part of the nearest and dearest. It was in that moment that something shifted inside me. A coldness I had never felt before spread through my entire body. I looked at Clara, searching her eyes for any trace of the child I had raised, but I only found indifference. I had raised a stranger. I had loved someone who saw me as an ATM. I understand, I finally said, with a calmness that surprised even me. I understand perfectly, Julian smiled, thinking he had won. Clara sighed in relief, believing the awkward moment had passed. But they didn't know that I had secrets too. Secrets that were about to change all the rules of the game. I walked to my car with my dignity intact, but my heart in pieces. As I started the engine, I took out my phone and dialed my bank. Good morning. I need to freeze a transfer I made 2 weeks ago. The voice on the other end of the line was professional and efficient. Of course, ma'am. What is the reason? Family fraud, I replied without hesitation. In 5 minutes, the $63,000 were frozen. Clara's perfect wedding had just turned into her worst nightmare, but this was only the beginning. As I drove back into the city, my phone started ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. I let it ring. I knew exactly who it was and why they were calling. The bank notification had arrived in Clara's account. Transfer frozen by sender. I could imagine Julian's face when he found out. I could imagine the panic in my daughter's eyes when she realized her perfect wedding was falling apart. But I wasn't going to answer. Not yet. After so many years of being the mother who was always available, who always solved the problems, who always said yes, it was time for them to learn what desperation felt like. It was time for them to know what it meant to need someone and have that person not be there. I checked into the most elegant hotel in the city, not the cheap motel where I always stayed when I came to visit them. This time, I wanted luxury. I wanted to feel valued, even if it was by strangers who treated me with respect in exchange for money. The receptionist gave me a genuine smile when I checked in. Welcome, Mrs. Eleanor. We hope you enjoy your stay. How different it was to be treated like a distinguished guest instead of a nuisance. In my room, a suite with a view of the lake, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down to wait. I didn't have to wait long. My phone exploded with calls. First call, Clara. Second call, Julian. Third call, Clara again. Fourth call, an unknown number, probably Julian from another phone. Fifth, sixth, seventh call. I let them all go to voicemail. Finally, I decided to listen to the messages. Clara's voice sounded desperate. Mom, please, I need to talk to you. There was an error with the bank. Call me, please. An error. How convenient to call it an error now that she needed my money. The second message was from Julian, and his tone was completely different. Eleanor, I don't know what little game you're playing, but this is serious. We have vendors to pay, a hall reserved, guests coming from out of state. Fix this immediately. A little game. That word made me laugh. Because if this was a game, I had just changed the rules, and they didn't know I held all the winning cards. But what really shocked me was the third message, also from Julian. Listen to me, you old woman. I don't know what's wrong with you, but if you don't fix this in the next 2 hours, you're going to regret it. Clara is crying because of you. Is that what you want? To make your own daughter suffer? Old woman. He had called me an old woman and then had the gall to blame me for Clara's suffering. That was the last straw. I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer's number. Stephen, it's Eleanor. I need to see you first thing tomorrow morning. It's urgent. Stephen had been my lawyer for years, ever since the divorce. He knew my entire financial situation. He knew about my properties, my investments, everything that Clara and Julian were unaware of. What's wrong, Eleanor? You sound upset. I told him everything, every detail, every humiliation, every cruel word. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Eleanor, he finally said, are you sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no going back. Stephen, for 71 years I have been too good, too understanding, too generous. They have used me, manipulated me, treated me as if I were worthless. No more. I want them to know exactly who they messed with. That night, as I dined alone in the hotel's elegant restaurant, my phone continued to ring. I counted the calls, 41 in total. 41 desperate calls from 2 people who had never called me just to ask how I was. 41 calls from 2 people who only remembered me when they needed something. But the calls weren't the worst part. It was the text messages. 12 messages that went from pleading to threats in a matter of hours. Clara started with, Mom, please call me. We can talk about this later. Then, I don't understand why you're doing this. I thought you wanted me to be happy. And finally, if you ruin my wedding, I will never forgive you. But it was Julian's text that truly showed me his true colors. Eleanor, this is ridiculous. Behaving like a child won't get you anywhere. Then, we get the message. You wanted attention? You've got it. Now give the money back. And the last one, the one that made me laugh out loud. You're a bitter old woman who can't stand to see her daughter happy. You've always been a manipulator. A manipulator. Me. The woman who had given everything without asking for anything in return. The woman who had worked herself sick to pay for my daughter's whims. The woman who had kept silent when Julian filled her head with foolish ideas about my supposed interference in their relationship. I couldn't sleep that night, not from guilt or regret, but from adrenaline. For the first time in years, I felt powerful. I felt in control. I felt like the main character in my own life instead of a supporting character in the lives of others. At 3 in the morning, I decided to do something I had never done before. Check Clara's social media. What I found both broke my heart and strengthened my resolve. Photo after photo of her showing off her engagement ring, her ivory wedding dress, her honeymoon plans. I wasn't in any of those posts. She never mentioned me in any of her stories. It was as if I didn't exist. But what hurt the most was a post she had made the week before. So grateful to my future husband for teaching me how to be independent. I finally understand that true love isn't dependence, it's freedom. Thank you, Julian, for helping me cut the chains that were holding me back. Chains. I was the chains. My motherly love, my sacrifice, my dedication, all of that was chains to her. Julian had brainwashed her so thoroughly that she no longer saw my love as love, but as manipulation. She no longer saw my generosity as generosity, but as control. It was in that moment that I made my final decision. It wasn't just about the wedding money. It wasn't just about the humiliation of that morning. It was about years of being invisible, of being taken for granted, of being treated like a resource instead of a person. I took out my laptop and began writing emails to my contacts, researching my rights, making plans for the next few days. If Clara and Julian wanted a war, they were going to get one. But this time, I had the heavy artillery. because what they didn't know was that I wasn't just a retired mother with some savings. I was a woman with properties, investments, contacts, and most importantly, with the truth on my side. For years, I had kept silent about many things. I had protected Clara from knowing certain details about her father, about our real financial situation, about the sacrifices I had made. But the silence was over. It was time for my daughter to know the whole truth. It was time for Julian to find out who he had really messed with. The sunrise found me awake, dressed, and ready for battle. 41 missed calls glowed on my phone's screen. 12 threatening messages waited to be answered. But I was no longer the Eleanor of yesterday. I was no longer the mother desperate to please her daughter. I was a woman who had decided to reclaim her power. And this was just the beginning. At 7 in the morning, my phone rang again. This time, I answered. It was Clara, and her voice sounded broken. "Mom, please, we need to talk. Come to the house." Her tone had completely changed. It was no longer the coldness of yesterday, but pure desperation. "Good morning, Clara," I replied with a calm that surprised even me. "How did you sleep?" "Mom, don't play games with me. You know exactly why I'm calling. The bank says you froze the money. Why would you do something like that?" Her voice broke at the end of the sentence. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered her words from yesterday. "I didn't know you were coming." I remembered Julian's contemptuous face. I remembered how they had treated me like a stranger after I drove 800 miles to be there on the most important day of her life. "Clara, I think it's time we had a conversation we should have had a long time ago," I said. "But it's not going to be at your house. If you want to talk to me, we'll meet in the lobby of the Lakeshore Grand Hotel at 10 o'clock, and you come alone." "Alone? Why alone? Julian is my husband. He has a right to be present in our family conversations." There it was again. Julian controlling even the conversations between a mother and daughter. "Clara, Julian is not your husband yet. And if you want me to unfreeze that money, you either come alone or you don't come at all. You decide." There was a long silence. I could imagine her consulting with Julian, asking for permission to speak with her own mother. Finally, she sighed. "Fine, I'll be there at 10. She hung up without saying goodbye. How far my little girl had strayed from the loving daughter who used to say, "I love you, Mom," before hanging up the phone. But I had more important things to do before that meeting. I called Stephen. "Good morning. Can we move up our appointment? I need to see you before 10. "Of course, Eleanor. How serious is this?" "Stephen, we're going to change my will. Completely." An hour later, I was in Stephen's office, signing documents that Clara could never have imagined existed. "Are you absolutely sure about this, Eleanor?" He asked me for the third time. "This is a very drastic decision." I looked him straight in the eye. "Stephen, for years, I have been a mother. I have put my daughter's needs before my own. I have sacrificed my happiness, my comfort, my dreams for her. And yesterday, I discovered that to her, I am just a bank account. I am more sure of this than anything else in my life." The documents were ready. Stephen explained every detail, every consequence. "Once you make this public, Clara is going to know exactly what she's losing. Are you prepared for that conversation?" I smiled for the first time in 24 hours. "Stephen, I've been preparing for that conversation my whole life. I just didn't know it." I arrived at the hotel 5 minutes before 10. Clara was already there, sitting in a lobby armchair with her eyes red from crying. She was wearing a light green dress I had given her last year for her birthday. She looked small, fragile, like the little girl I used to comfort when she had nightmares. For a second, my mother's heart softened, but then I remembered Julian's words. "She thinks $63,000 guarantees your presence." "Mom," she said, standing up as she saw me, and tried to hug me. I took a step back. "Sit down, Clara. We have a lot to talk about." Her eyes filled with tears when she saw me reject her embrace. "Mom, why are you acting like this? I don't recognize you." "You don't recognize me?" "That's interesting, because I didn't recognize my daughter yesterday when she shut the door in my face, after I drove 800 miles to be at her wedding." I sat across from her, maintaining the distance. "Tell me, Clara, At what point did you decide that your mother didn't deserve to be at the most important day of your life? Mom, it wasn't like that. It's just complicated. Complicated? What a convenient word to avoid taking responsibility. Julian thought it would be better to have an intimate ceremony for only the closest family. And I'm not close family. The woman who gave birth to you, who raised you alone, who worked double shifts to give you everything you needed, she's not close family? The tears started to stream down her cheeks. Of course you're close family. You're my mother. But Julian says you've always been very intense with me, that I need space to create my own family. Intense. That's the new word they found to describe my motherly love. I leaned forward. Clara, let me ask you a very simple question. Who paid for your college? You did, Mom, but who bought you your first car? You did. But who lent you the money for the apartment where you live now? You did, but I don't see what that has to do with anything. And who gave you $63,000 for your perfect wedding? Her face turned pale. You did, Mom. You've always been generous with me. That's why I don't understand why now. Why now what, Clara? Why now am I refusing to be treated like an ATM? Why now am I refusing to be invisible in my own daughter's life? You're not invisible. You're very important to me. Her voice sounded desperate. Important. Clara, yesterday, your fiancé told me that you two believed $63,000 guaranteed my presence at the wedding, as if I were a guest who had bought a ticket, as if my place in your life depended on how much money I gave you. Julian didn't mean it like that. He was just nervous about the wedding. You know how people get when they're stressed. There she was again, defending Julian, justifying the unjustifiable. Clara, do you know what the saddest part of all this is? You can't even see when someone is manipulating you anymore. Julian has brainwashed you so well that you now believe your mother's love is toxic. He hasn't brainwashed me. Julian helps me be independent. He helps me grow as a person. Independent. How ironic. Independent, Clara. You're not independent. You've gone from depending on me to depending on him. The difference is, I never made you feel guilty for needing me. That's not true. Julian truly loves me. He wants what's best for me. What's best for you, and what's best for you includes humiliating your mother on your wedding day? It includes treating me like a stranger after everything I've done for you? Clara stood up, clearly agitated. Mom, stop. I came here to ask you to unfreeze the money. The wedding is tomorrow. We have everything paid for with that money. If you don't release it, we're going to be humiliated in front of all our guests. Oh, so now you need me. Now I'm important. What a coincidence that your filial love shows up just when you need something from me. I stood up too, looking her directly in the eye. Tell me one thing, Clara. In the last 6 months, how many times did you call me just to see how I was doing? How many times did you come to visit me without asking for something? Her silence was more eloquent than any answer. Exactly. 0 times. The only time you talk to me is when you need something. Money, favors, for me to watch your dog when you go on trips. But you never call just because you miss your mother. That's not true. I love you, Mom. You love me? Really? Then tell me, when was the last time you said I love you without it being attached to a request for money? Again, the silence. Another nail in the coffin. Clara, I'm going to tell you something I've never told you. Something I've kept secret all these years because I wanted to protect you. Her eyes widened with curiosity and fear. When your father left us, I had 2 options. I could have gone with him, as he asked, and left you with my sister. Or I could stay with you and raise you by myself. Dad asked you to go with him? Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Clara. Your father asked me to leave everything and go with him to start a new life without you. He said you were too young, that you wouldn't remember us, that my sister would raise you well. Tears streamed freely down her face now. I chose to stay with you. I chose to be a single mother. I chose to sacrifice my chance at a new life because you were more important than anything in the world. My own voice broke, and now, 43 years later, my own daughter treats me like I'm an inconvenience. Mom, I didn't know. No, Clara, you didn't know because you never asked. You were never interested in how much it cost to raise you alone. You were never interested in how many nights I stayed up wondering if I was doing the right thing. You were never interested in the fact that I turned down 3 marriage proposals because no man was ever going to be more important than my daughter. The hotel lobby had become our stage of pain. Other guests glanced at us discreetly, but I no longer cared. This conversation had to happen. Do you know what the most painful part of all this is, Clara? You've become the very thing I tried to prevent. You've become someone who abandons their family when they no longer need them. Clara collapsed into the armchair, sobbing uncontrollably. Mom, I didn't want to hurt you. It was never my intention. It's just that Julian says, Enough, I shouted, and the entire lobby turned to look at us. Enough of, Julian says. Julian thinks. Julian's opinion. Where is Clara in all of this? Where is my daughter who had a mind of her own? I don't know what to say. Her voice was that of a lost child. Julian helps me see things differently. He says you've been very controlling, that you never let me grow up. Controlling. There was that word again. Clara, tell me something. When have I controlled you? When have I forbidden you from doing something you truly wanted to do? Well, you always had an opinion about my boyfriends. An opinion, not a prohibition. Remember David? That boy who hit you in college. Do you remember what I told you? Her eyes filled with recognition. You told me that no man had the right to lay a hand on me. Exactly. And was that control? Or was that a mother's protection? It was protection, she admitted in a low voice. And what about Evan, the one who cheated on you with your best friend? Do you remember what I told you? You told me I deserved someone who respected me. And was that control? Or was that love? Silence. So, explain to me how Julian has convinced you that my love is control and his manipulation is freedom. Clara fell silent, processing my words. I could see the confusion in her eyes, the internal struggle between what she felt and what she had been taught to think. Mom, Julian doesn't manipulate me. He loves me. He loves you, Clara? A man who loves you doesn't push you away from your mother. A man who loves you doesn't make you choose between him and your family. A man who loves you doesn't convince you to treat the person who has loved you most in your life poorly. But he says I need to be independent. Clara, look around you. Look at this luxurious hotel where I'm staying. Do you think a dependent woman can afford this? Do you think a woman with no resources can freeze $63,000 as if it were pocket change? Her eyes widened in surprise. I hadn't thought of that. No, because Julian has made you believe I'm a needy old woman who depends on you too. But the reality is very different, my love. I took out my phone and showed her the screen. This is my main bank account. Read the figure. Her eyes widened like saucers. Mom, is this real? Very real. And this is just one of my accounts. Do you want to see the others? I don't understand where all this money came from. Work, smart investments, properties I bought when you were little. Remember those weekends I would take you to visit friends? I was actually looking at properties, making investments, building a future for both of us. Clara put her hands to her mouth. All this time you've had so much money, and you never told me. For what? So you would love me for my money? So Julian would set his sights on my bank account instead of your heart? I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what I have. But Mom, if you have so much money, why did you work so hard? Why did you always say money was tight? Because I wanted to teach you the value of hard work. I wanted you to know that good things are earned. I wanted to raise you with values, not with whims. The tears returned to her eyes. Mom, I feel awful. I didn't know any of this. No, Clara, you didn't know because you never asked. In all these years, you were never interested in how I was really doing, what plans I had, what I dreamed for my future. You were only interested in what I could give you. That's not true. Her voice was less convincing each time. No? Then tell me. Do you know what my favorite color is? Silence. Do you know what my favorite food is? More silence. Do you know what I like to do in my free time? The silence was deafening. You know nothing about me, Clara. To you, I'm just Mom, the one who solves problems and gives money. But I am Eleanor. I am a 71-year-old woman with tastes, preferences, dreams, and plans. I am a whole person, not just your mother. Mom, Let me finish. Yesterday, when Julian said you two thought $63,000 guaranteed my presence, he confirmed what I already knew. To you two, my value is measured in money. As long as I can give, I'm useful. When I can't, I'll be disposable. Don't say that. You know I love you. You love me? Then answer this. Why, on your entire social media page, in all your wedding photos, in all your posts about your happiness, do I never appear? Why do you never mention me? Why is it as if I don't exist in your life? Clara hung her head in defeat. Julian says that posting too much about family is in poor taste. And what do you say? What do you think? Or do you not think for yourself anymore? My voice hardened. Clara, when was the last time you made a decision without consulting Julian? He's my partner. It's normal to consult him on things. Normal? Is it normal for your partner to decide if you can mention your own mother on social media? Is it normal for your partner to have an opinion on whether your mother can come to your wedding? He just wants to protect me. Protect you from what? From your own mother? I leaned forward, staring at her intently. Clara, I'm going to tell you something I hope you understand. Julian doesn't protect you from me. He isolates you from me. And there is a huge difference. I don't understand the difference. Protection gives you tools to face the world. Isolation takes away your tools so that you depend on the person isolating you. Julian doesn't want you to be strong. He wants you to be dependent on him. But he makes me feel special. Special or needed? Clara, have you ever wondered why Julian never had a problem with me paying your expenses, but he does have a problem with me maintaining a close relationship with you? Clara frowned, thinking, I hadn't looked at it that way. Of course not. Because he's very clever. He lets you receive my money, but not my love. He lets you benefit from my generosity, but not from my wisdom. He makes you my heir, but not my daughter. Mom, you're confusing me. No, Clara. I'm clarifying things for you. For the first time in years, I'm telling you the unfiltered truth. I leaned back in the armchair, emotionally exhausted. Now tell me, what's more important to you? The money for your wedding or the relationship with your mother? Both. Why do I have to choose? Because yesterday, you two already chose. You chose the money when you closed the door on me. You chose the money when you treated me like a vendor instead of a mother. You chose the money when you humiliated me in front of my son-in-law. We didn't choose the money. Her voice sounded less certain. No? Then explain to me why Julian mentioned the $63,000 within the first 5 minutes of the conversation. Explain to me why his first concern wasn't apologizing for treating me poorly, but ensuring the money was still available. Clara fell silent, processing. I could see in her eyes that the pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together. Mom, what do you want me to do? I want you to think. To think for yourself, without Julian's influence. I want you to remember who you were before you met him. Were you more dependent on me, or were you more authentic? Silence. Clara, before Julian, when was the last time you spoke rudely to me? When was the last time you disrespected me? Another revealing silence. Never, she finally admitted. Never, because I taught you to respect your mother. I taught you that family is sacred. I taught you values that Julian is destroying one by one. I stood up, tired of the conversation. Clara, I'm going to give you 24 hours to decide what's more important to you. If by this time tomorrow you haven't made a decision, I will make one for you, and I assure you, you won't like my decision. What decision, Mom? What are you going to do? That depends on you. But remember something. I have lived 71 years without Julian. I can perfectly well live another 20 without him. The question is, can you live without your mother? I walked away, leaving her there, sobbing in the hotel lobby. But this time, her tears didn't stop me. This time, my pain was stronger than my maternal instinct to comfort her. Because it was time for Clara to learn that actions have consequences and that a mother's love, though infinite, is not unconditional when it comes to respect and dignity. That afternoon, I dedicated myself to doing something I hadn't done in years, taking care of myself. I went to the hotel spa, got a massage, a manicure, a pedicure. I got my hair cut at the fanciest salon in the city. I bought new clothes that made me feel powerful and elegant, because I had made a decision. I was no longer going to dress like the long-suffering mother everyone expected. I was going to dress like the successful woman I truly was. As I was trying on an elegant red dress in the most expensive boutique on Michigan Avenue, my phone rang. It was Julian. This time, I decided to answer. "Hello." My voice was cold, distant. "Eleanor, we need to talk." His tone was no longer arrogant like yesterday. There was a note of nervousness that I enjoyed hearing. "Speak," I said as I admired myself in the mirror. The red dress fit me perfectly. "Look, I think there was a misunderstanding yesterday. Clara is very upset, and so am I. The wedding is tomorrow, and we need to sort this out." A misunderstanding. What a convenient word. There was no misunderstanding, Julian. You two were very clear yesterday. I was not welcome at my own daughter's wedding. The message was received loud and clear. That's not what we meant. We were stressed. You know how weddings are. Julian, let me ask you something. In these 3 years, have you ever treated me like your girlfriend's mother, or have you always seen me as an obstacle? There was a long silence. "I don't know what you're talking about, Eleanor. I've always respected you." I laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised even the saleswoman. Respected me? Calling me an old woman is respect? Saying I'm a manipulator is respect? Convincing my daughter that my love is toxic is respect? I never said those things. Julian, do you think I'm stupid? I'm 71 years old. I'm not a naive teenager. I know exactly what you've been doing. You've been poisoning my daughter against me since the day you met her. That's a lie. I love Clara. Do you love her? Or do you love what she can give you? Because a man who loves a woman doesn't push her away from her family. A man who loves a woman helps her be a better daughter, not a worse one. Clara is an adult who can make her own decisions. Her own decisions? Julian, Clara hasn't made a decision of her own since she met you. Everything she thinks, everything she feels, everything she decides, first goes through your filter. I signaled to the saleswoman to wrap up the red dress. I was taking it. Eleanor, we didn't call to argue about our relationship. We called to ask you to release the wedding funds. Ah, there's the truth. You didn't call to apologize for treating me poorly. You didn't call because you realized you made a mistake. You called for the money. The wedding is tomorrow. We have commitments, vendors to pay. We can't cancel everything at the last minute. And that's my problem? You two decided I wasn't important enough to be at the wedding. Now I'm deciding your wedding isn't important enough for my money. You're being very cruel, Eleanor. Do you really want to ruin your own daughter's wedding? Cruel. That word stopped me in my tracks. Julian, do you know what's cruel? Cruel is raising a daughter alone for 43 years and having her shut the door in your face on her wedding day. Cruel is working yourself sick to give your daughter everything and having her treat you like a stranger. Cruel is loving unconditionally and receiving contempt in return. But the money is already committed. People are coming from out of town. It will be a public humiliation. Exactly. It will be a public humiliation. Like the humiliation you put me through yesterday when you treated me as if I were an intruder in my own daughter's life. Eleanor, be reasonable. We can fix this. You can come to the wedding. We'll save a special seat for you. A special seat. After paying $63,000, they were offering me a special seat as if it were charity. A special seat. Like what? In the back row? In the kitchen? Or maybe standing outside watching the cars? My voice grew harder with each word. Don't offer me crumbs after you've taken the whole banquet. Fine, fine. Front row, next to Clara's parents. Julian, I am Clara's mother. I don't need to be next to the parents. I am the closest family she has, or at least I was, until you brainwashed her. Eleanor, tell me what you want. What do you need to release the money? There it was, the million-dollar question. Literally. What I want, Julian, is for my daughter to remember who her mother is. What I want is for her to understand that respect can't be bought with money. What I want is for her to learn that actions have consequences. And how do we do that? Very simple. I want Clara to come to my hotel tonight, alone, without you. And I want her to apologize to me, not for the money, but for disrespecting me. And I want her to promise me that she will never again let anyone push her away from her mother. That's emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail? Julian, do you know what emotional blackmail is? It's convincing a daughter that her mother is toxic so you can control her better. It's making a woman feel guilty for loving her family. It's using love as a weapon of manipulation. I have never done that. No? Then explain to me why Clara, who used to call me every day, now only calls when she needs money. Explain to me why Clara, who used to visit every weekend, now comes once a month if I'm lucky. That's normal when people get married. Priorities change. Priorities change, Julian. But family love doesn't disappear, unless someone is actively working to destroy it. I hung up the phone without giving him a chance to respond. I was tired of his justifications, his manipulations, his arrogance. But most of all, I was tired of being treated like I was the problem when I was clearly the victim. That night, as I dined alone in the hotel restaurant, I reflected on the whole situation. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from the constant worry of pleasing Clara, free from the anxiety of doing something wrong that might push her away, free from walking on eggshells so as not to upset Julian, because I had understood something fundamental. I hadn't lost my daughter. My daughter had lost herself. And until she found herself again, until she remembered who she was before Julian, there was no relationship to save. My phone vibrated with a text message. It was Clara. Mom, Julian told me about your conversation. I'm coming to see you tonight. We need to talk. For the first time in 24 hours, I genuinely smiled. Maybe, just maybe, my daughter was starting to wake up. But I was no longer the desperate mother willing to accept any crumb of attention. I was a woman who knew her worth, and who was not going to accept anything less than the respect she deserved. The war was just beginning, and this time I had all the weapons. Clara arrived at my suite at 8 o'clock in the evening. When I opened the door, her appearance surprised me. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair was disheveled, and she was wearing the same wrinkled clothes from the morning. She looked destroyed, but for the first time in years, she had come alone. "Come in," I said, remaining composed. She entered slowly, looking at the elegant suite in awe. "Mom, this place is incredible." "Yes, it island. When you value yourself, you treat yourself as you deserve," I replied, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "Do you want one?" "Yes, please. I need something to calm my nerves." She took the glass with trembling hands. "Mom, I've been thinking all day about our conversation this morning, and I think you were right about a lot of things." "About a lot of things?" "No, Clara. I was right about everything." My voice was firm, but not cruel. "The question is whether you're ready to admit it." She sat on the sofa, burying her head in her hands. "I don't know what's wrong with me, Mom. It's like I've lost the connection to myself." "You didn't lose it, my love. It was taken from you." I sat across from her, studying her face. "Tell me something, Clara. When was the last time you made an important decision without consulting Julian?" She looked up, confused. "I don't understand the question." "It's very simple. When was the last time you said, 'This is what I want,' regardless of his opinion?" Clara thought for a long time. I don't remember." "Exactly. Because for 3 years, you haven't been you. You've been the version of you that Julian needs you to be. But he loves me. He tells me I'm perfect for him." "Clara, have you ever wondered why you're perfect for him? Is it because he truly knows and accepts you for who you are? Or is it because you've molded your personality to fit what he wants?" The tears started to run down her cheeks again. "Mom, I'm so confused. Julian says he's helping me grow, but you say he's controlling me. I don't know who to believe." "Don't believe anyone, Clara. Believe yourself. Listen to your heart, not to outside voices." "But how do I do that? I don't even know what my own voice is anymore." "Let's start with something simple. Tell me, did you really want such a big, expensive wedding?" Clara frowned. "Actually, I always dreamed of something more intimate. A small ceremony on the beach with close family. And why wasn't it like that?" "Because Julian says a wedding is the most important event in a woman's life, that we have to celebrate it in a big way so everyone can see how happy we are." "Everyone who, Clara? Who cares so much about being impressed?" "His friends, his work colleagues, his family." She stopped talking suddenly, as if she had just realized something. "Mom, I just realized I didn't mention my friends or my family. Exactly. This wedding isn't for you, Clara. It's for him. But I agreed. I said yes. Of course you said yes. Julian is very clever. He didn't force you directly. He convinced you it was your idea. I stood up and walked to the window. Clara, do you remember what you were like before you met him? You were more spontaneous, more joyful, more yourself. Yes. Her voice was barely a whisper. Mom, is it normal for my fiancé to constantly criticize me, to tell me how to dress, how to talk, who to associate with? My heart sped up. She was finally starting to see reality. No, my love, that's not normal. That's control. But he says he does it because he loves me, because he wants me to be the best version of myself. Clara, the best version of yourself is the authentic version, not the version he wants to mold. I turned to look at her directly. A man who truly loves you, accepts you as you are, and helps you shine by being yourself. He doesn't change you to fit his idea of perfection. Mom, I'm scared. Of what? That you're right. That I've made a terrible mistake. That tomorrow I'm going to marry someone who doesn't really know me. And what scares you most about that? That it's too late to change my mind. She stood up abruptly, pacing the room. Mom, everything is paid for. The guests have already arrived. Julian's family came from another state. If I cancel now, it's going to be a horrible scandal. Clara, would you prefer a one-day scandal or a lifetime of unhappiness? My question stopped her in her tracks. A marriage isn't an event, my love. It's a whole life. And if you have doubts now, imagine yourself in 10 years. But Julian will be furious. He'll say I'm crazy, that I'm irresponsible. And does that matter more to you than your own happiness? No. But there are no buts, Clara. Either your happiness is more important than his anger, or it isn't. It can't be both. Clara sank back onto the sofa. Mom, if I cancel the wedding, I'll lose Julian. And if you don't cancel it, what will you lose? Myself. And you. The admission came out like a painful whisper. Clara, I'm going to tell you something I hope you remember for the rest of your life. It is better to be alone and be yourself than to be with someone and be a fake version of yourself. I sat down beside her and took her hands. I was alone for many years after your father left, and they were happy years because I was authentic. Didn't you miss having a partner? Of course I did. But I preferred authentic loneliness to fake companionship. And look, I eventually found real love, but at that time, it wasn't my priority. Real love? When? 5 years ago, I met a wonderful man, Arthur. But I didn't tell you about him because by then, Julian had already convinced you that I was problematic. Her eyes widened like saucers. You have a boyfriend, and you never told me? Clara, I tried to tell you several times, but every time I mentioned I had met someone, you would change the subject or tell me to be careful with men who take advantage of older women. That sounds like something Julian would say. Exactly. Because they weren't your words anymore. They were his words coming out of your mouth. I stood up, went to my purse, and took out a photo. Look, it was a photo of Arthur and me on our last trip together. We looked happy, relaxed, in love. Mom, he looks like he really loves you. He adores me, and I adore him. But I have never allowed him to change me or to push me away from you. Because when love is real, it doesn't destroy existing relationships, it enriches them. Does he want to meet me? He's dying to meet you. But he respects that I set the time and the manner. He has never pressured me to choose between him and my daughter. The comparison was obvious and painful. Mom, it hurts so much to realize all of this. I know, my love. But the pain of the truth is temporary. The pain of living a lie is for a lifetime. I sat beside her again. Clara, regardless of what you decide about the wedding, I need you to understand something. You are my daughter, and you will always be my daughter. But I will not allow myself to be disrespected. What does that mean? It means that if you choose to stay with Julian, and he continues to poison you against me, I will protect my own peace of mind. I will not continue to be the ATM for your relationship or the villain in your love story. Mom, I don't want to lose you. Then don't lose me. But don't expect me to settle for the crumbs of love that Julian allows you to give me. My voice hardened slightly. I deserve a daughter who defends me, who values me, who includes me in her life out of love, not obligation. Clara burst into tears. Mom, I've been horrible to you. I didn't realize what was happening. My love, realizing is the first step. Now the question is, what are you going to do with this new information? Clara cried in my arms for 20 minutes. They were not tears of manipulation or self-pity. They were tears of recognition, of genuine pain for having lost herself. When she finally calmed down, she looked at me with the clearest eyes I had seen in years. Mom, I'm going to cancel the wedding. Her words surprised me, though it was what I had hoped to hear. Are you sure? It's a very big decision. I'm sure. I can't marry someone who has pushed me away from the most important person in my life. I can't marry someone who makes me doubt my own mother. Clara, only cancel the wedding if you truly don't want to marry him. Don't cancel it for me. It's not for you, Mom. It's for me. I've realized I've been living the life he wants, not the life I want. She stood up from the sofa with determination. I'm going home right now, and I'm going to tell him I'm not getting married tomorrow. Do you want me to come with you? I have to do this alone, but I need to know that when I walk out of there, I'll have a place to go. You will always have a place with me, my love. Always. I hugged her tightly. But Clara, be prepared. Julian is not going to take this well. He's going to try to manipulate you into changing your mind. I know. But I'm not going to fall for his games anymore. She took my face in her hands. Mom, forgive me for being so blind. Forgive me for doubting your love. Forgive me for letting someone convince me that you were the problem. You're already forgiven, my love. The only thing that matters is that you've come to your senses. I walked her to the door. Call me as soon as you're done talking to him. No matter the hour. After Clara left, I sat on the balcony of my suite with a glass of wine, waiting. I knew the conversation with Julian wouldn't be easy. I knew he would use all his manipulative weapons to make her change her mind. But I also knew that my daughter had awakened. And an awakened woman is very difficult to put back to sleep. My phone rang at 11 o'clock at night. It was Clara, and she sounded agitated. Mom, I'm in my car outside the house. Julian is furious. He screamed horrible things at me. What kind of things? He said I'm crazy, that you brainwashed me, that I'm an irresponsible person who doesn't understand the consequences of her actions. And what did you say to him? I told him that for the first time in 3 years, I'm thinking clearly, that I realized he had pushed me away from you and from myself. He went crazy. Mom, I've never seen him like that. Did he hurt you? Not physically, but... Her voice broke. Mom, he said that if I leave him now, he'll ruin my life, that he'll tell everyone I'm an unstable lunatic, that he'll make me lose my job. Your job? What does your job have to do with this? He knows my boss. He said he'll tell him I'm an unreliable person, that I can't be depended on for anything important. Clara. That's called blackmail, and it confirms everything I told you about him. I know. But I'm scared. What if he follows through on his threats? My love, a man who threatens you to stay with him doesn't love you. He possesses you. And possession is not love. Mom, can I come to the hotel? I don't want to go back into the house. Of course. Come immediately. 20 minutes later, Clara arrived at my suite with a small suitcase. She looked pale but determined. I just packed the essentials. I'll come back for the rest of my things tomorrow when he's not there. How did he take the news of the cancellation? At first, he tried to convince me it was just pre-wedding jitters. Then he got angry and started screaming at me. Finally, when he saw I wasn't going to change my mind, he became cold and calculating. That's when he made the threats. Clara, that shift in strategy is typical of manipulators. First, they try to persuade you, then they intimidate you, and finally, they threaten you. I sat on the bed next to her. How are you feeling? Scared, but relieved. It's like I've woken up from a nightmare. And what are you going to do tomorrow? The guests will be arriving, expecting a wedding. I've already thought about that. I'm going to go to the church early and explain personally to the closest family members. For the rest, we'll put a sign at the entrance. A sign? Yes. It will say, "The wedding has been canceled by the bride's decision. We apologize for the inconvenience." Simple and direct. I was surprised by her resolve. And Julian? Julian can do whatever he wants. He can make up whatever stories he can think of. The people who truly know me will know I'm not crazy. Clara, I am so proud of you. I know this isn't easy. No, it's not easy. But Mom, for the first time in years, I feel like myself. And do you know the best part of all this? What's that? That I don't have to ask anyone for permission to be who I am. That night, Clara slept in the second bedroom of my suite. But before we went to bed, we did something we hadn't done in years. We stayed up late talking, not about problems or drama, but about dreams, plans, happy memories. For the first time in a long time, my daughter was my daughter again. Mom, will you tell me more about Arthur? Do you really want to know? Yes. I want to know your life, not just be a part of it. I told her about Arthur, about our travels, about how he had brought back the joy of being loved for who I truly am. When am I going to meet him? When you're ready. No pressure, no hidden agenda. Only when you feel you want to meet the man who makes your mother happy. I want to meet him, Mom. I want you to know that I support your happiness. Her words filled my heart. Clara, there's something else I want to tell you. Something about your financial future. What do you mean? Tomorrow, we're going to see Stephen. I'm going to change my will again. Everything I have will be yours, but with conditions. What conditions? That you never allow anyone to manipulate you using my money. That you use that inheritance to be independent, not to buy love. And that if you ever have children, you teach them the value of family respect. Mom, I don't need your money to love you. I know, my love, but I want you to have it so you never have to depend on anyone. So you never have to endure mistreatment out of financial necessity. That happened to you, with my father. Yes. That's why it's so important to me that you are financially independent. When we finally went to sleep, for the first time in years, I lay down without the constant anxiety about my relationship with Clara. I had gotten my daughter back, not just physically, but emotionally. I had won the most important war of my life, the war for my daughter's soul. But I knew Julian wouldn't stand by idly. A man like him doesn't accept defeat easily. Tomorrow would be a difficult day, but I wouldn't have to face it alone. My daughter was on my side again. The day that should have been the wedding dawned gray and rainy. Clara woke up early, more determined than ever. Mom, I want to go to the church before Julian gets there. I need to speak with Father Alexander and the relatives who have already arrived. Do you want me to come with you? No. I have to do this alone, too. But I need to ask you for a favor. Anything you need. Can you unfreeze the money? Not for the wedding, but to pay back the vendors who are not at fault. It would be unfair for them to lose their money because of my decisions. I felt so proud in that moment. My daughter had regained not only her authenticity, but also her sense of justice. Of course. As soon as the bank opens, I'll make the transfer. Thank you, Mom. Now I understand it was never about the money. It was about respect. Clara left at 8 in the morning. I stayed at the hotel, waiting for news and preparing for what I knew was coming. Julian's revenge. I didn't have to wait long. At 10 in the morning, my phone began to ring with unknown numbers. First call, Eleanor? This is Letitia, Julian's sister. What have you done to Clara? She's acting like a crazy person. Second call, this is Beatrice, Julian's mother. We demand an explanation. You have ruined my son's life. Third call, Eleanor. This is David, the best man. This is a scandal. How could you let Clara do this? I answered every call with the same response. Julian knows exactly why Clara made this decision. If you want answers, ask him, because I knew Julian had told them his version of events, where I was the manipulative villain who had destroyed their happiness. But the call that truly surprised me was from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Eleanor? This is Ivan, a reporter from the local news channel. We have information that the Julian-Clara wedding was canceled at the last minute due to family interference. Could you give us your version of events? There it was. Julian had called the press. He wanted to turn this into a public scandal, to pressure Clara into going back to him. I have no comment for the press, I replied and hung up. But I knew this was only the beginning. Clara returned to the hotel at noon, exhausted but at peace. How did it go? Better than I expected. Father Alexander was very understanding. He said he'd rather have a canceled wedding than an unhappy marriage. And our relatives, most of them understood. Some were upset, but when I explained that I had serious doubts about the relationship, they said I did the right thing. And Julian? He arrived as I was finishing, explaining the situation. He made a terrible scene, screaming that you had brainwashed me, that I was hysterical, that he had invested 3 years of his life in me. How did people react? Mom, that's when I realized that a lot of people already knew what Julian was really like. His own aunt told me afterward. Clara, my nephew has always been controlling. I'm glad you realized it before the marriage. Really? Yes. Apparently, it was no secret to anyone except me. But the conversation was interrupted when Clara's phone began to ring insistently. It was Julian. She hesitated before answering. Put it on speaker, I suggested. I want to hear what he has to say now that his plan has been ruined. Clara, thank God you answered. Listen, we can fix this. I know your mother filled your head with silly ideas, but we can get past it. His voice sounded desperate. Julian, they're not silly ideas. They are things I should have seen a long time ago. Clara, love, you're confused. Your mother is jealous of our relationship. She can't stand that you're happy without her. There he was again, trying to sow doubt. Julian, my mother isn't jealous. She's concerned, and she was right to be. Concerned about what? I love you, Clara. I've given you everything. No, Julian. You've taken everything from me. My personality, my relationship with my mother, my self-confidence. That's not love. That's a lie. I've helped you grow, to mature. Mature? Does maturing mean being isolated from my family? Does it mean doubting my own feelings? Does it mean needing your approval for everything? Clara's voice grew firmer with each word. Julian, you made me believe my mother was the problem when the problem was you. Clara, don't do this to me. Think of everything we've built together. What have we built, Julian? A relationship where you decide everything and I obey. That's not building, that's controlling. But I love you. Doesn't that count for anything? If you truly loved me, you would never have pushed me away from my mother. If you truly loved me, you would have helped me be a better daughter, not a worse one. Clara looked at me as she spoke, and I saw in her eyes a strength she had lost years ago. Julian, this is over. Don't call me anymore. Wait, what if we talk to your mother? What if we make peace? We can start over. It was incredible how he now wanted to include me once he realized he had underestimated me. No, Julian, there's no going back. And let me tell you something. My mother was right about you from the very beginning. It's a shame I was too blind to see it. Clara, if you leave me, you'll regret it. No one will ever love you like I do. I hope you're right. I hope no one ever loves me like you do, because your love was killing me from the inside. And she hung up. Immediately, her phone began to ring again, and again and again. Block him, I said. You've had the conversation you needed to have. Now he will try to exhaust you with calls until you answer. Clara blocked Julian's number and sighed in relief. But I knew this wasn't over. I knew men like Julian. They don't accept defeat. They seek revenge. And sure enough, an hour later, his next strategy began. Social media. Clara received screenshots from her friends. Julian had posted on Facebook. After 3 years together, my fiancé decided to cancel our wedding on the day itself because her mother convinced her I was a bad person. It's sad to see how family manipulation can destroy true love. Mom, he's trying to make me look like a manipulated lunatic. I know, my love. It was predictable. What are you going to do? Respond publicly? Number. Never get into public wars with manipulators. They are experts at playing the victim, but I am going to do something. What are you going to do? I'm going to tell the world who Eleanor really is, and who my daughter is. If Julian wants a media war, he's going to get one, but not with the weapons he expects. I turned to my laptop with determination. Clara, do you trust me? Completely, Mom. It was time for Julian to learn that he had completely underestimated his opponent. I was not just a concerned mother. I was an intelligent woman, with resources, with contacts, and with the truth on my side. The real war was just beginning. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and created something I never thought I would, a social media account. But not just any account. An account where I would tell my full story, with proof, with dates, with everything. If Julian wanted to play dirty, I was going to teach him how it's done when you have 71 years of experience. Mom, are you sure about this? Clara watched me type my first post nervously. My love, my whole life I have stayed silent when I've been attacked. I have been the polite lady who doesn't make a scene. But Julian touched my daughter, and I don't forgive anyone for that. My first post was simple but powerful. My name is Eleanor. I am 71 years old, and yesterday my daughter canceled her wedding. Her ex-fiancé is claiming I manipulated her. This is my real story, with proof. I attached a photo of myself at the hotel, elegant and dignified, and another photo of Clara and me embracing. In 2 hours, the post had 1,000 shares. In 4 hours, 3,000. People were intrigued. Comments of support started pouring in. Mrs. Eleanor, tell us the truth. Mothers always know. Respect to women who defend their daughters. My second post was more direct. Julian says I manipulated my daughter. Let me show you the last conversations we had before she decided to cancel the wedding. I posted screenshots of his threatening messages, his insults, his blackmail attempts. Does this seem like the behavior of a man in love? The effect was immediate. The comments grew more intense. That man is an abuser. Good thing Clara realized in time. Julian is a classic manipulator. The narrative was changing. But my most powerful post was the third one. Julian says I ruined his life. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped financing his show. I posted a screenshot of the $63,000 transfer I had made for the wedding, and another screenshot of when I froze it. A man who truly loves does not measure that love in money. That's when things went viral. Thousands of women began to share their own stories of financial manipulation. Mothers who had gone through similar situations, daughters who recognized the patterns of control. My story had become a symbol for something bigger. Clara was astonished. Mom, you have 50,000 followers in one day. I know, my love. Because there are many women who have lived this. I just put into words what many have felt. And Julian? Julian is desperate. Look, my daughter's ex-fiancé had started to respond aggressively on social media, but every response made him look worse. That old woman is lying. Clara was happy until her mother interfered. Eleanor is a professional manipulator. Every comment he made generated more support for us. He's sinking himself, Clara observed. Manipulators don't know how to act when they lose control of the narrative. Mom, many women are writing to me, telling me similar stories, some very sad. That's the power of speaking the truth, my love. The truth resonates. But the final blow came when we least expected it. One of Julian's ex-girlfriends, motivated by my story, decided to speak publicly. Her name was Letitia, and she had dated him for 2 years before he met Clara. Her testimony was devastating. Julian did the exact same thing to me. He pushed me away from my family, controlled my money, made me believe my mother was toxic. When I finally realized it and left him, he also tried to ruin my reputation. Seeing Clara go through the same thing breaks my heart, but I'm so glad she had a mother like Eleanor to defend her. After that testimony, 3 more women came forward, all with nearly identical stories. Julian had a pattern. Clara hadn't been his first victim, but thanks to me, she had been his last. Mom, I feel horrible for all those women. Don't feel horrible, my love. Feel grateful that you realized in time. And feel proud that your story will help other women recognize the signs. A week later, Clara and I were at my house, packing up her things from the apartment she had shared with Julian. He had disappeared from social media after the scandal. He had lost his job when his boss saw all the material that had gone viral. His reputation was ruined. Do you feel bad for him? I asked Clara as I folded her clothes. I feel bad for the person I was when I was with him, but not for him. Number. And how do you feel now? Free. For the first time in 3 years, I feel completely free. That afternoon, as we were having coffee in my garden, Clara asked me a question that surprised me. Mom, when am I going to meet Arthur? Are you sure you want to meet him? More than sure. I want to meet the man who makes my mother happy, and I want to apologize to him for all the time we wasted because of me. I called Arthur that very night. My love, there's someone who wants to meet you. Clara? Yes, she's ready. Eleanor, I have waited for this moment for 5 years. You don't know how happy you make me. The introductory dinner was the next day. Arthur arrived with flowers for both of us, and with the most genuine smile I had seen in years. Clara, your mother has told me so much about you that I feel like I already know you. Mr. Arthur, I'm so sorry you had to wait so long for this moment. There's nothing to be sorry for, my dear. The important thing is that we're here now. Throughout the dinner, I watched how Arthur naturally included Clara in our conversations, how he respected my role as a mother, how he never tried to compete for my attention. It was the behavior of a self-assured man who didn't need to isolate the woman he loves. Mom, Clara told me at the end of the night, now I understand the difference between real love and possession. Arthur loves you so much that he wants you to be happy in all areas of your life. Julian loved me so much that he wanted to be my only source of happiness. 6 months later, Clara had found a new job. She had made new friends and had started dating a man who encouraged her to talk to me every day. I had sold some of my properties, and Arthur and I had decided to travel the world together. Mom, there's something I want to tell you. We were having lunch at our favorite restaurant, a tradition we had resumed. Tell me, my love, I want to thank you for being strong enough to fight for me, even when I was against you. Clara, that's the difference between a mother and a manipulator. A mother fights for her child's well-being, even when it's hard. A manipulator fights for control, no matter the cost. Do you know what I admire most about all of this? What's that? That you never once said, "I told you so." You never made me feel stupid for falling for Julian's manipulation. You just helped me get back up, because my goal was never to be right, my love. My goal was always to have you back. That night, as I was having dinner with Arthur in our apartment, he told me something I will never forget. Eleanor, what you did for Clara was extraordinary. Not many mothers would have the courage to risk their relationship with their daughter to save her from herself. Do you know what I learned from all of this, Arthur? What's that? That true love sometimes requires being brave. It requires saying no when everyone expects you to say yes. It requires standing up for what's right, even if it makes you look like the villain. And do you regret anything? Only one thing, that it took me so long to realize that I shouldn't have to apologize for loving fiercely. For years, I thought my motherly love was too much. Now I know that my motherly love was exactly what Clara needed to save herself. I don't regret driving 800 miles for a wedding I wasn't welcome at. I don't regret freezing $63,000. I don't regret fighting for my daughter when she couldn't fight for herself, because I learned that kindness should never be practiced at the expense of self-respect, and that a mother who knows her value raises a daughter who knows hers.